Hello everyone. Sorry, was just having fun. The computer system decided it wasn't going to work properly, so I had the fun of dealing with that and arguing with that, which is always fun. It's always cool to have to argue with the computer system and go, no, you will work. And it going, no, I won't. I don't feel like it. Working's too hard. And I'm going, no, you will. You certainly will. Now, you, this evening, are going to be slightly more level than you were a second ago. And I'm going to do that. And hopefully, you're talking right to me. And I have, or hopefully, that takes you out of the view of the books, doesn't it? So, perhaps if I do that, does that let you see some of the books? No, it doesn't. The books are slowly getting in there. At the moment, there's a pile of tools above my head, because all the tools have gone up to that shelf. So they're sorted. And, well, I'm going to take you off for a second and give you a bit of a tour. This is the what's going to be the railway section. As you can see, that's just missing that piece of wood there, then I'll build the rest out. Got to take that off the pallet, which is currently outside. We've got this book of shelves in, as you can see. Nice little pillar to hold it up. Going all along there. That is going to be extended up. I have this little wood here. And it's going to be extended up. I'm going to reach up to this one. And probably going to keep it going up to that one. And so there'll be a nice pillar rising up. Roughly, as you'll see, just out of line with the beam. And there's a reason for that. If I'd done it in line with the beam, it would have been out of line with the floor and looked weird with the floor. And I decided in the end I was going to spend more time probably looking at the floor and down that direction to look at the railway than I was up there. And it would annoy me more it being out of line with the line on the floor than it would the roof. I don't know. Right then, so let's see. Who am I going to say hello to? Hello, Carl van Gasberg. You were here first. I know because I saw your message earlier. Hello, Peter Dawson. Hello, John Shea. Hello, King's Rook. Hello, Nautical Wolf. Hello, Albert Sasky. Hello, Paul Johnson. Hello, Rick Vassala. Hello, Jess P. Hello, DGB40. Hello, Nautical Wolf. Hello, Derp Squad. Hello, Dan Freeman. Yay! Blessings of the Blackburn be upon you. As you'll notice, those who frequent the Discord, I have consented. I have, rather like in academia, you have chairs of things which are named for things. I have set up a naval aviation channel called the Blackburn Naval Aviation Channel. I am literally doing this experiment. If it gets too weird, i.e. if there starts being all sorts of weird and wacky stuff that is far beyond naval aviation for the Blackburn, then I reserve the right to rename it Mustang Sally Naval Aviation Channel or something. Anything to get it away from the Blackburn. Oh, right then. And I will be announcing the vote for Marches today, but as you can see, I had help all day yesterday, thanks to my builder, who's prepared to work for Iron Brew and Pizza. And after that, I just felt too tired to log into Patreon and do it. So that will all be done. It will be done, but it's going to be done tonight after Bruships. So while I'm in my lovely little office, I can work quietly without anyone being upset with me not paying them attention. Mainly fluffy research assistants who get out of trouble. By the way, the fluffy research assistants, I was going to have shelves down here beneath the railway. No. That's the little the trainee assistant fluffy research assistants spot. This is the fluffy research assistant spot. So the idea of me turning this into a desk or anything isn't going to happen at all. Right then. Hello, DM Carpenter. Hello, Jess P. Hello, Stafford Thompson. All right then. Hello, new IQB 4472. And hello, dude. Oh, it would be fun to be on the roof. And Dev Squad, turns out the Dr. Clark has decided to move to the Azores and is now GMT +1. No, I don't think so, I am. I don't think so, anyway. LMS Studios, hello! LMS. I wonder if you're London, Midland, Scotland Studios, or if you're something else. Sound. Also, messages coming from sound. Yes, we have sound. I'm hoping it's okay. I'm worried that isn't enough Iron Brew. We have cans as well as a bottle. Hello, old Richard. Hello, Derp Squad. Hello, everyone. Nautical Wolf. Hello, Stephanie. Hello, DM Carlner. Too weird. That's max of a challenge. No, that isn't a challenge. That really isn't a challenge. In fact, I'm going to nominate Dan Freeman, the responsible administrator for that particular area, and therefore everything has to pass the the medical provision of not being too weird. Builder who works for Iron Brew and Pizza. Does he answer Alex as well? Maybe. Oh. Alistair Shaw, hello, well done. I've just been on a PM binge of your work. Oh, glad. Well, I hope you're okay after it. Nautical Wolf, hello, and that's what sounds okay. That's good. London Studios. I'm London Midland Scotland Scottish Studios. I'm also HMS King George V. Yeah, I decided to change my name. Honestly, LMS Studios is also quite cool. HMS King George V is cool, but LMS Studios is also cool. You're cool either way. And 1965 Jack. Sounds good. Thank you. Sound is good. Right then, so, sound is good. The books have been having an impact, and there are a lot of books in here. The ones to my right are the ones here. I have to admit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a fixture up on that window where I can put the camera, because I think that position, it's going to sound strange, but I will show you the position it's going to be in eventually. Up about here should be a fairly good view of everything. And that's what I'm going with. But at the moment, you're all balanced on, again, my friendly builder who works for Iron Brew and Pizza ladder. Because my ladder has been nicked by my sister. It happens. Ay, caramba. It does. It happens. I wouldn't trust me with responsibility for the Blackburn subchannel at the Flock. It will soon be working on recognition as a religion for tax purposes. I don't know. In Kings Row, all the roof discussion is because we have an ice dam on the roof and water was leaking into the house. I have buckets on my window still to catch drips. Ouch! Now, I happen to have a friend who lives in Norway who does have that occasionally. And her technique, believe it or not, because her family has a reindeer herd, which is just a thing you have in Norway, apparently. No, she comes from Northern Norway. Is they send some of the lady deers up there, and they tend to apparently their liquid tends to get rid of the ice flows rather well. I'm not sure if she was pulling my leg or not, but she actually sent me a picture of it, so I'm going to presume that's quite a lot. Doing that for just to pull my leg and take a picture is quite a lot of effort. I'm worried about you all now. Cajun, what colour was the FRA Taffra after last week's Bruships? Well, let's put it this way. When they went in, my mum was complaining they needed to have the sawdust taken off them because her dogs had changed colour. Wasn't me. Luckily, they were taken in well before I got no. I have to say, and I'm going to say this several times, but the company who supplied this office, Lugar, were not that great. In fact, freaking terrible. But yeah, at some point, someday, when this is all over, I will sit down and do a video with my friendly builder, and we will discuss all we did to make this office work. And it will just be basically a kind of, documentary on making the office. And that'll be after we put the name up, because I will put the naming suggestions for the office up as well. Now, that should hold that in place. Seriously, the sheer number of books I can get on these shelves is amazing me. Okay. Right. Oh. Animal Street, I'm sure if it was raining Iron Brew, you would have an entire plot of land with a giant bucket with a little dispenser where you could have collected in all your videos. Yeah. The thought of it raining Iron Brew could distract me for a few minutes, so we're going to stop there because that could. So your sister hadn't managed to get paint on them yet? So far, no, but she keeps talking about touching up. Crazy Locus, wondering if Iron Brew is similar to Orange Nehi or Orange Crush stateside. You can find Iron Brew stateside. I recommend trying it before you start thinking about what it tastes like, because nothing's quite the same. Ooh, Derp Squad, that would be tempting. Naming consideration, the Hall of Brew. No, it looks orange, but it doesn't taste orange. It's kind of like bug juice in the USN, in that the colour has no relation to the flavour whatsoever. And yes, I have spent way too much time in the USN that I am fully sure of this. I don't think the red bug juice tends to be better than the limeish coloured bug juice. Is the only other advice I can give with that. So, believe it or not, good lord, it's either collapsed a few seconds ago, or I haven't been going as long as I thought I'd been going. Let me see. How's it collapsed a few seconds ago? Well, that says 13 minutes. And this says 3 minutes and 16. So I'm going to reckon that this is about 11-minute mark. It decided to freeze and restart. Cute. Oh, I've got 49 viewers. Thank you. The Clark Institute for Shed. Hello, Yogi Khan. Right then, so I'm going to start off with some new books because I have some new books which are really, really cool. And I hadn't been planning on doing these today, but I actually read them this week, earlier than I was expecting, and then I thought, well, at a certain point, you've got to do this. And it kind of fits with some of the stuff I've been discussing on Bruships, especially, on Build Trumps, especially, I mean. So they seem rather sort of sensible. HMS Kamchatka. No, those are two words which will never go together, Albertaski. Never. Hello, Trent! Hello! Lovely chatting with you, by the way, on Friday. That's one of the things we've got coming up. We've got a great thing. You're going to love Bilge Pumps this week. Bilge Pumps is going to be fantastic on Wednesday. It's going to be epic in length, but it's fantastic. Is the Iron Brew caffeinated or just sugary? It is caffeinated, but let me just see how much. Let's see. Yeah. Ingredients include... Caffeine is mentioned about 3 times in this list. So, yeah, there's caffeine in there. Peeps Navy. Peeps Navy by J.D. Davies, Ships, Men and Warfare. 1649 to 1689. I'm not sure why the camera's being a bit funny. Hey ho. It could be just the contrast under this light. It is a gorgeous book. There's drawings like this in it, if you're interested in looking at how the rigging and masts go together on a ship in the period and how they're organised. It's got all the plans and all the key details. So if you're planning on modelling a ship, it really, really is good. That is technically also how Iron Brew gets through so many things, Trent. It claims it's an energy drink. It's got all the stuff here. All the role of frigates. It's got the various people. It's got discussions of the battles. And it's just a gorgeous book. What I love is it's about £20 in price. And it is 2008 publication. Got sent to me this week. And it's really, really cool. So you should be able to find it for less, honestly. If it's 2008 publication, it's £20, then it should be less. It's got all the details about shipboard life. It's got gunnery. Whole chapter about them. Peeps. Just Pete. That's how you pronounce peeps. Would not have been my first guess. Yes, that's peeps. I was taught that by... What was his name? Oh, a very fine doctor, Dr. Partridge. Dr. Michael Partridge, who has since died, but was my bachelor dissertation supervisor and my tutor the whole way through my bachelor's in that at British universities. I think it's the same in American, but it's slightly different. One of the academics is nominated as your sort of tutor, your sort of point of contact to go to if you have any issues. And he was a wonderful, wonderful gentleman and an amazing historian of Gladstone, Disraeli, and the navies of their time. Absolute, out of this world, brilliant historian on that period. I mean, his books, if you can find Dr. Michael Partridge book, you will never be disappointed in the content and the quality of information found in there. I'll have to make sure I review some someday. King's Rook. How goes Drakenfelder flamethrower? Do not ask that question. He is seriously working on it. Me and Jamie are seriously worried. Kyle Twarg. Finally got one of those. Hello, Kyle! Welcome! Cajun, remember this is English. If it's phonetic, something has gone wrong. Yeah. It's a man in a shed. Yes, it is. It's getting... hey, look, it's... Seriously, the number of books this shelf takes. And this is the railway shelf, and it's loaded with books at the moment as well. It's cool. However, I must admit, it is now nice and clean in here. Although you're still on my DIY sort of my workbench rather than my desk, because I haven't moved that down yet. Drakenfell, the wooden shed may not go so well. Drakenfell, the fillet over it. No, it won't. Hello, Yickers. What section should I read out? What would you all enjoy? Actually, let's read out gunnery and fighting. Gunnery was a complex discipline, and gunners had a number of increasingly scientific manuals available to them. John Smith included an extensive treatise on gunnery in his Seaman's Grammar of 1627. And from the 1660s to the 1680s, there were several editions of A Light to the Art of Gunnery by Scott Captain Thomas Binning, who had served chiefly on land but was also a gunner of a Dutch ship in the 1650s. Smith demanded that gunners should be competent in both geometry and arithmetic, both vulgar and decimal, and able to calculate the square and cube roots. Binning placed a similar emphasis on quite complex mathematical knowledge, without which a gunner could not properly calculate weight of shot, the diameters of gun barrels, or trajectories. Preparing to fire. According to Binning's advice to naval gunners, at least 24 cartridges of powder ought to be placed by each gun, half of them filled and half empty. The different types of shot will be laid out in different, easily identified viable cases. Ropes, rammers, and sponges would be to hand, and bales of water would be placed between the guns. The trucks, wheels of the gun carriage, would be covered in soap. More cartridges could be brought up from the powder room by ship's boys or from the 1670s, the maimed men allocated to each vessel if their disabilities permitted it. Aiming and range. John Swift suggested aiming the gun by setting up the dispart, aiming device, on the muzzle ring just above the centre of the gun's mouth, then making a mark on the highest part of the base ring, and from about 2 feet behind the breech, bringing the mark on the base ring, the top of the dispart, and the target all into one line. However, Binning thought it impractical for gunners to employ at sea the sighting tools their military counterparts used on land, and omitted all mention of the dispart. Instead, Binning suggested that the captain of each gun crew should stand to the left of the gun, place his right foot within the cartridge, look down his piece to line up the breech, muzzle and mark, take account of the motion of both his own ship and the enemy, something which Smith ignored, and, according to as he sees occasion, give fire, remembering hastily to withdraw his right foot before it was trapped by the recoil. The complex mathematical formulae that Binning provided elsewhere in his treatise was clearly of little use in such circumstances. Indeed, he devoted only 4 pages out of 172 to naval gunnery, suggesting it was rather a less scientific exercise than that practiced by gunners ashore. Nonetheless, even naval gunners would sometimes have to make quite complex geometrical and trigonometrical calculations. Binning cited the example of a bombardment of a fort, with a ship lying about a third of a mile offshore. After calculating the distance from topmast head to the waterline, the gunner need to go to the topmast head itself to take a quadrant sighting on the fort, after which he could calculate the that he needed to elevate the gun by 2 degrees to get near the mark. The artillery drills of the Anglo-Dutch Wars were conducted at very short range, which was usually estimated in terms of musket range rather than yardage. At Solbay in 1672, the 2 centre squadrons were said to be about a musket shot distance from each other, so probably well under 300 yards. And a disabled Dutch ship was captured after coming within half a musket shot of us. The term point-blank range was used in the 17th century, but had a somewhat different meaning from that generally accepted today. It was at most 350 paces, with one pace taken to be 5 feet, giving a distance of about a third of a mile. With a larger gun, point-blank would be much less. For a demi-cannon, it was taken to be 200 paces. It was assumed that gunners would fire only when they were within point-blank range, and Captain Nathaniel Butler, writing in the 1630s, claimed that the maximum range for a broadside ought to be musket shot at point-blank. The maximum range was academic in practice, as such a shot was hardly likely to be effective. Nevertheless, in one experiment cited by John Smith, albeit conducted on land, an 8-foot-long Saker loaded with 3 pounds of powder fired a ball 1,125 feet at 1 degree of elevation, 2,180 feet at 5 degrees, and 3,150 feet at 10 degrees. This is a good book. It's a very, very good book, and well worth a read. King's Rook. Speaking of rich gentlemen sheds, how long until the shed built by the Trouble class happens? Tempting. Very tempting. We'll work on it. Dr. Johnson, Dr. Clark, has Drac looked into the flamethrower I tagged you to with on Twitter? If we can have them, I'd imagine you'd be able to import it. Oh, good lord. Yeah. I haven't seen the tag one, I think, but if he has, this could be giving him more ideas. He has enough. He has enough. Drac is a very intelligent, very smart gentleman. An amazing historian, and frankly looks scary when he has the access to the necessary chemicals to make a flamethrower. He just sort of smiling like this. Dev Squad, did BT really have to read this book and not realise that possibly 24 powder bags of 15-inch guns possibly shouldn't be stored next to the guns? We hoped by the time of BT that there was a slightly better book. But honestly, I'm not quite sure whether BT ever read a book. He must have for his lieutenant's exams, but that's about it. New IKB 4472, how far is a musket shot? I think it answered that when I went reading through it. Galdwag, I'm curious. As adjustable signs and gunnery tables existed at the time, why not interpret for range compensation rather than having them do out the trajectory? Well, simply put, because each ship was slightly different. You can do trajectory tables, and later HSL ships did occasionally do trajectory tables. But the thing was, A, you have the fact that the ship moves in 6 dimensions. So it's it's going forward and it's doing that at the same time. And then you have the fact that, it's in this period, if you take a look at it, and I'll try and show you one. Okay. The gun decks on these ships were interesting. The piercing for the guns, etc. They can be quite, if you look at this one, you'll notice that actually there is a curve in the deck as you look at it, and that's quite common in some size. So it's only as you get later that you get a slightly different style of construction. These ships actually start to get a bit fatter. They get longer, but they get a bit fatter. And you get sort of leveling out to an extent. Not to a great extent, but a little bit, enough to make it more practical, that they do start to use grouped gunnery, and they have more gunneries. There was an interesting question that I think, I'm not sure if it was today's or a few other a previous dry dock or something, but there was someone talking about asking, were midshipmen in charge of sailors? The answer was, well, you'd often have them relaying orders because it was cheaper to have a lot more midshipmen than have a lot of gunners, because gunners are quite difficult to train. And you would often have one gunner per ship, one master gunner, and then the first lieutenant would take a gun deck, or one of the other lieutenants would take a gun deck, and there would basically be a lieutenant on each sort of side if it was engaged, or multiple sort of the level of the gun decks down, and they'd have midshipmen with them as repeaters. Occasionally a midshipman might end up a gun captain, It's rare. What the circumstances when you normally had midshipmen end up in charge was during things like boarding parties, when you would find a 13-year-old boy with a sword charging at the head of the sailors because he was the trainee officer, and that's what the expected was. So when the lieutenant went down, the midshipman would pick up the sword and charge ahead, shout, "Follow me, boys!" And that's how quite a lot of midshipmen ended up earning their promotions to lieutenant. Because they'd be made an acting lieutenant after that. If they did well enough, they'd come back, they'd do the lieutenant's exam, and then they'd be a proper lieutenant at the age of 16, 17. Sometimes younger. Ooh. Peter Dawson, A Mathematician's Miscellany by J. Littlewood has a chapter on gunnery. Littlewood was a second lieutenant during World War I. Cool. Yogi Khan, how do we get a signed copy of your new book? Well, I'm hoping to do a book tour at some point. Well, a sort of book tour in that there are a whole list of places which I was supposed to do some public lectures at on various topics during COVID, which has been moved out, and I'm hopefully going to get around doing them. I might even, it's even rumours I might get a couple. There's a couple of friends in States who'd like me to visit their universities and give a talk. So maybe I'll be over there. I'm happy to come. Crazy Log. Also, how to calculate how much grog the gun had in the pre-iron period. You have to remember, one of the things you've got to remember is the reason they're drinking alcohol is that is safer than the water. Less likely to kill you. Because they'd often run out of clean water, which is why they had a grog. And you have to remember how used they are to taking their alcohol. So the level of alcohol you'd imbibe versus how much they could imbibe and still be compos mentis and functioning fine is different. Okay? There's God. Given the accuracy of BT's ships and his response, I get the feeling he'd have been better suited Age of Sail ranges. Yeah, a BT in Age of Sail would have had serious problems. Starters, in the Age of Sail, it's all flag signals. You all know how bad he was with those. I shouldn't, but I couldn't resist. GWT picked. Actually, effectively, I think the British Army in Napoleonic times would consider sub 100 yards as effective. As in, you might hit something in range. True. Very true. Also hard to calculate how... Hello, Carl. Hello. Joanne, I've always wondered about the slopes towards the aftercastles in pictures and paintings of gangs. Seems like one could fall rather far. They're fun. Carmen, has Patreon put the refund through? I can't find it. They claim to have with me. But I do point out that I think it went through on a Saturday or I'm not sure. Did it go through on a Friday? In which case, they might claim the weekend. Carmen, will you be coming to Wales post-lockdown so I can get my time? Yes. To be fair, I have been going near Wales for quite a while because my girlfriend lives in the Wirral. So, yeah. End up near Wales quite often. Come guys, a remidshipman ending in command after ending up in command after thus. The Deep Space Nine episode Valiant is valid-ish? Yes. It can happen. Although, honestly, that one was all kinds of twaddle. We're going to let cadets go off in a prime little warship with only a couple of officers aboard, and then they die. They're going to be allowed to go fighting. You do not do that. A, there should be more than 2 officers aboard. B, are you trying to get them killed? Is that it? Do you want to get Red Squad killed so they get rid of a political thing you don't like? That's always interesting. The thing that seemed like it's me for that scenario. In which case, again, a Defiant class vessel is rather useful. There are so many less useful ships you could have packed them into. That's good. Would the sailors on the other ship hesitate before stabbing a child, like armies and rumboys? Or did they have no such crumbs? No such crumbs, and you're presuming that there aren't children on the other ship. There are powder monkeys, which could be boys as young as 5 or 6. There could be boy sailors, who might well have come straight from the orphanages and joined up as a sailor at the age of 12 or 13. And there could well be midshipmen themselves midshipmen, or what's euphemistically termed as another way of taking midshipmen, captain servants, who could be another group of young gentlemen who have been enjoined to the ship. There could be, in other words, you could quite easily see a sight of 2 13-year-old boys duking out with swords. There is, in the Drinkwater series, which I talk about on occasion, there is a young Mr. Culhampton who has had his hand replaced with a hook, and he's only 15 because he loses it in a fight. You only need about 2% alcohol in the drink to sterilize it. And until gin plus rum, the alcohol was less strong than we are used to. Small beer was drunk instead of water, and about 2%. Safe for kids. Yeah. Come, any place in the southwest? Oh, well, it's just, it's cheaper to go down to Bristol or London than North Wales. Ah, well, don't worry, South Wales as well. I'll figure out something. I do tend to turn up in Bristol occasionally. Hello, Geirr. I've just joined. Seems your new office is almost ready. Almost, yes. I've got to put my desk in, and I've got to finish off the shelf. There's literally just one piece of wood missing. Once I've got this piece of wood in, I can build the shelf out in seconds. Hello, Geirr. That's what. In the Age of Sail, wars were often fought enough for people to realize. Were often long enough for people to realize Beatty was incompetent, and he'd be moved to somewhere where it'd be less dangerous, or to catch something horrible. Dan Frim, Beatty does make his name. He's a very good at some of the dashing things. And honestly, Beatty would have probably been okay in the Age of Sail, where you have a lot longer to communicate. Because let's be honest, you're moving at what? Maximum 10 knots? You get the wrong flag signals, pull them down, blame a midshipman, put up the proper ones. You'd love that. Plus, again, flag signals going up. There is a cat, but the difference is that there is the captain is literally sitting on deck and should go. Yeah, but Chatfield. Oh, Chatfield. Don't let me start on Chatfield. But no, that was Peep's Navy. Come on, nothing into bank but refunded on Patreon, so hopefully we'll get it soon. We'll cross fingers. Right then. And let's see, we're at the 30-minute mark. We were at the 5-minute mark, so we're at the 25 onto that. 4 onto that, and put 40. And go. Next book, which is The Power and the Glory. Where's the patron vote? Patron vote, as I said at the beginning, is going to be put up tonight. I was just too tired yesterday after doing all the building all day to do it. Hello, Constant Drowsiness. Literally, this was mostly built yesterday, and most of the stuff was finished off yesterday, and then all I've done today is pretty much build this column in and make sure that's done. And we had all sorts of other weird stuff. My sister's office is now completely finished. So, next book. Next book is The Power and the Glory. Royal Navy Fleet Reviews. From earliest times to 2005. And it is by Steve Dunn. And first of all, I'm going to do something strange. I'm going to take off the cover. I'm going to show you the book inside. There is the Spithead review from 1914. It's under there again on the back. It is a beautifully put together book. And this is the front cover. And this is the reason I've taken off, because I can do this without breaking the back of the book. That is gorgeous. It's lovely. Now, helpfully they have four of his other books in the back. And you start by going through and you're going, oh, it is gorgeous. Some pictures. Okay. We have this one. That's a good picture. Now, it's one of those books which you just want to read. It has got gorgeous pictures. And it just has so much content. Because it's a nice way to chart the rise and fall of the Royal Navy. But I never say, I don't really like rise and the fall as an expression, but I do tend to use it because it's something you have to use. You either have to use the rise and fall or the growth and devastation and decimation of the Royal Navy. And I get told by people that when I use the growth and devastation, I sound too political. So I have to use the RNF. Again, watermarks in this book are gorgeous. There are watermarks on the pages, and there's little quotes from people, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book. It's the sort of book you want to, have, if you were going to take a book for a long, long flight, and you were only allowed to take one book in your hand luggage, which would be absurd. And if any airline ever tried to do it with me, this would be a good choice to pick. It would keep you amused and interested for a full, long flight. Here's a good story in it. In 1867, the Sultan of Turkey gets seasick. In July 1867, the Sultan of Turkey, Ottoman Empire as we probably call them, but Sultan of Turkey in this book, Abu Dallas, made a visit to Britain. He had ascended to his somewhat precarious throne in 1861 and was a great admirer of Western culture. He was also an ardent navalist and by 1785 had made the Ottoman Navy the third largest fleet in the world. This was a force of 21 battleships and 170 warships of other types. He also visited Berlin, Brussels, and Vienna on his way home. Abdallah's aim to cultivate good relations with the Second French Empire and the British Empire, and in 1867 went on a European tour. Foss started to do so, visiting Paris, where he took in Exposition Universal, and then on to Britain. The visit was very much in line with British foreign policy, but desire to keep the Ottoman Empire intact to prevent Russian aggrandizement and access to the Mediterranean was still uppermost in the government's mind. Russia must sometimes look at Britain and go, why do you never change in your plans? This would significantly reduce the time. Especially now that the Suez Canal was open to this commercial traffic. This would significantly reduce the time to reach Asia and India in particular, and the preservation of some sort of British influence over it was seen as crucial. The visit was thus doubly important as the Sultan was accompanied by the Khedive, Viceroy of the Autonomous Ottoman Khedivate of Egypt and Sudan, Ismail Pasha, through whose lands the Suez Canal ran. The problem was that Victoria continued to refuse to undertake public duties. She was in retreat at Balmoral for that summer, and that was where she intended to stay. However, Prime Minister Edward George Geoffrey Smith Stanley, 14th Earl of Derby, was able to persuade her that the English influence, which was paramount at Constantinople, might well be damaged if the Sultan was shown less respect than had it been in Berlin or Paris. Victoria agreed to come down to Osborne, and a great Royal Naval Review was planned for the Turks' delight. Sultan arrived at Dover on board Napoleon III's royal yacht Reine Hortense on the 12th of July, to meet the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Cambridge, who accompanied him on a train to Charing Cross Station. During his 10 days in Britain, the Sultan was accommodated at Buckingham Palace, where a number of staterooms had been specially redecorated in honour of his visit. The problem was the weather. It had been steadily becoming worse for 2 days, with little chance of it moderating. Inshore boats could not communicate with the fleet. A postponement was only prevented by the announcement that Wednesday, 17th July, was absolutely the only time at the Sultan's disposal. A review would go ahead on that day, come HELL or high water. Sultan and Khedive travelled separately to Portsmouth. Once again, railway problems interfered. Although he had left much earlier, the Khedive arrived at the same time as Sultan, and a separate reception planned for each, by first the Admiralty and then the Mayor, and the Corporation of the Corporation Town, became an unseemly melee. In the meantime, the weather worsened, and a wind got up with a violence that soon cleared the water of all sailing craft, except a very few of the most adventurous yachts, and rose into perfect fury as each one of the dull grey masses of rain cloud that kept gathering to windward broke out over or near the scene. It was decided that the original plans could not be adhered to, and there would instead be the briefest inspection of the fleet at anchor. There was a further complication. The Sultan had been promised that he would be made a member of the Order of the Garter, as a mark of respect. Victoria had cavilled, suggesting the Star of India, but the government prevailed, and the representation was to take place on Victoria and Albert, the yacht, during the review. At midday, Osborne, carrying the Sultan, followed by another yacht with the Khedive and 3 P&O steamers, the Tanjore, Ripon, and Syria, bearing the foreign ministers and diplomats, the House of Commons and the House of Lords, respectively, followed in their wake. As they cleared the harbour, mouth on one side, where the old wooden walls of Victory, St Vincent and Duke of Ellingwood on the other, a long line of spectators crowding the seashore, and stretching away in the foreground was a monster avenue of vessels. On the Isle of Wight shore was the long line of 15 ironclads. In an exact parallel of the Hampshire side was a corresponding number of the finest screw liners afloat, while the same number of gunboats extended the columns still further. All the warships were flying the white ensign instead of the previously used red, white, and blue squadron flags. At the head of the line of ironclads was the flagship of the Channel Squadron, the huge 5-masted HMS Monitor. Originally ordered in September 1861 as HMS Elephant, in honour of the ship once commanded by Nelson 70 years before, her name was changed to Minotaur during her construction. Launched 2 years later, she was an armoured frigate, iron-hulled with 5 masts, a single screw, 2 telescopic funnels, and a rounded ram. Minotaur was armed with a mix of 7-inch and 9-inch rifled muzzle-loading guns. All 4 9-inch and 27-inch guns were mounted on the main deck, with 4 7-inch guns were fitted on the upper deck as chase guns. The ship also carried 8 brass howitzers for use in saluting. She was never to be tried in battle, however, which was possibly just as well. She had a small radius of action, as her pen trunk engine was a prodigious user of coal, although it could drive her up to 14 knots in short bursts, and she could not manage more than 9.5 knots on the canvas. Furthermore, Minotaur was reputed to be almost unmanageable under sail. The flagship was the vessel to commence the firing of the Royal Salute, which then rolled up the line at about Warships. Achilles, sister of the Minotaur, Warrior, and her sister Black Prince, the latter of which combines the long, low black hull and the grim and frowning battery with her graceful curves, comparatively like spars, and bows that sit on the water with real beauty of outline. The experimental turret ship, a Royal Sovereign, under the command of Captain Cowper Coles, excited great interest, waxed one reporter. In appearance, it must be said, she looks the image of a butter boat with 3 pats of butter. But the smile is strangely in contrast with the fact that the heaviest artillery in the fleet, then present, could then have barely made a dent even on the small target exposed to them. While all this was happening, the Sultan himself, the intended beneficial display, was generally down below deck in his vessel, being violently seasick. Nonetheless, when the line of yachts and steamers came to the shore off Osborne, where the Queen had allowed a band to play for the first time in nearly 6 years, the Sultan was able to board Victoria and Albert, narrowly missing a further downpour in which another furious squall of whistling wind and stinging rain seemed to beat straight down on the sea. The flag of the Ottoman ruler ran up alongside that of Queen Victoria, and the Queen, accompanied by the Prince of Wales, the Duke of Cambridge, Prince Arthur, Victoria's 7th child, Prince Leopold, her 8th child, Prince Louis of Hesse, married to Victoria's 3rd child, Alice, Princess Beatrice, Victoria's youngest offspring, and 3 ladies-in-waiting, invested the Sultan with the Order of the Garter. It's always good to be investing a seasick gentleman. Very happy, apparently. That's him. Yeah. This is a lovely book. It's well worth a read, and it goes right the way up to 2005, the most recent review. It's worth it. Right then, let's see. What questions I missed while I've been reading? Carl read BT and Age of Sails. Besides ships being slower, one ship can pretty much engage only one enemy from its current position, and there were way more engagements. So he would have picked up his comms skills. He should have done, yes. John Shea, out of any naval type books that talk about naval reviews are just amazing. And which naval reviews are included in this book? All of them, up to 2005. So this is a complete list of Royal Navy reviews. It's a really, really cool book. It's brand new, I think. Let's see, when it was published. Published 2021. So it's brand spanking new. It's lovely. Dev Scott, when your young nieces and nephews learn to spell, you're going to end up in a lot of trouble. My theory is by the time they learn how to spell, they probably know the words. Let's try this. So this is why I keep getting Turkish warships in my Facebook feed. There were a lot of them. This is one of the things. There were a lot of them. Dan Freeman, one now pronounced you steps out of line of an Austrian's rope. A knight of that steps devilly aside from a pool of vomit. Last Garter. Now everyone run. He luckily managed to contain himself, and to be fair, the Victoria and Albert was a notoriously very quite stable ship. Had been designed for the Queen and Prince Regent of Great Britain. They took a lot of care in that ship. It is a cool book, though. It is a very cool book. Anything else in there? you should see to get an idea of it? Well, there's this one, which I found particularly gorgeous. There are some pictures in here which, honestly, I think I have seen before, but which I don't really sort of remember in there. I think I've seen portions of them before, if that makes sense. And some of the pictures in here, you look at some of the ships and go, how in the name of all things holy did they get that thing on the water? There are some of them you honestly are not quite sure how they get it in the water. And occasionally the French turn up. That's even more fun. The French, one of the French hotels turned up, was sitting next to the British line, and all the British ships were going, "You sure you're still afloat? Need a pump?" French going, "We're fine. Stop being rude." Some very nice coloured pictures. It's a gorgeous book. Various coronation reviews. There's, of course, the obligatory pictures of Jackie Fisher and Dreadnought. Derp Squad, a brand new book where the attention has been paid to making the inside cover look good and the dust cover. What on earth got into publishers? That's not how profits made. This is Pen and Sword for you, and this is C4, which is one of the Pen and Sword publications. This is why I signed with them for my book. They produce quality. I am very, very happy they're doing my book. I am incredibly happy to review their books. They do allow me to say no, I don't want to review them, so ones which I don't like look of, I just say no straight up, because if I'm not going to like them, there's no point getting them sent to me to review, because they're just going to get a pounding review. But, I love that I get these books sent to me, and it's the way a review works in academic terms is, they send you the book. You don't have to pay for the book. And in return, you tell them what you think of it. Well, that's what I do. I do these videos. It's a good book. That's a one worth getting. Really is. Oh, you can see them. Just a corner. JP, Victorian interviews or why HMS Warrior was kept around to fill out the line of battleships. Because she was good. She looked good. As they were saying, her Black Prince and her looked good. The thing is, Warrior might not be militarily, in terms of firepower, so useful anymore, but she looks good. She looks impressive. And everyone knows she was the best. She beat the French one. So having her round is sort of a case of going, look at what we can build. And it's sort of also a case of, that's how good our oldest ship was. Imagine how good our new ships are. It's kind of like, why was HMS Victory sitting around in a harbour? Yeah, she was being used for things. Yeah. Never forget, half the battle is in image. Half of battle goes on in here. I'm proud to say where I live, we built 5 of the 7 Royal Yachts. Cool. That's good. A brand new book. Done that one. That's good. Getting a ship on the water is easy. Keeping it there is the hard bit. Yeah. Don't even. It's Clark Drippy, like Queen Vicky. I'm pretty sure, Admiral, that some of those ships down the back of the line are actually rowing boats with a clever paint job. I can see one of the crew standing up on one. How good is Osprey publishing book on tank landing craft 1942 to 2002? That's quite a cool book. I think I've got that somewhere. Let me have a look, because I've got that somewhere. If I have, I'll review it for you. Pen and Sword are my favourite publisher. They are a good set. John, the only thing I know about those reviews is the story of Turbina being chased all over the place. That was fun. She was fast. Hello. Sounds like a great read. Quite surprised to hear that the Ottomans had the third largest fleet in the 1870s. Don't really hear anything about their empire in the 1800s. Yeah, they have quite a capable armed force. It's like the Venetians have quite a capable navy in the sort of the age of Napoleon. It's one of the reasons why Napoleon tries to lay siege to them and tries to get rid of them. It's not because of the Venetian army, it's the Venetian navy. It's where they're going to go off and help the Royal Navy. Concentrates. Half the battle of the image. That explains half my problems. A lot of my problems. Basically, here's the thing. If you go into a war thinking your enemy is terrible, you are pretty sure you're going to win. It kind of gives you a psychological boost. If you go into war thinking your enemy is frankly excellent, is well trained, well prepared, well led, then you have a problem. Because that means you're psychologically automatically presuming they're going to think things through. They're going to figure things out. They're going to have an advantage. They're going to be your equals, maybe your superiors. You start second guessing yourself. Come on, I'm buying it for £4, possibly as why. Sounds good. That's good. The Spithead Naval review seems a bit like the British version of the Red Scare Parade. Yes, but our reviews are ultimately slightly more painful if you get them wrong. Rosowski, it may have been N.A.M. Roger who wrote something like the British crews in the Napoleonic War went into battle expecting to win, the French went in expecting to lose. That does sound like him, yes. A Happy Meal cost £4? A Happy Meal only cost £2. Oh, Happy Meal. No, I cannot order a McDonald's again. If I keep having McDonald's, it's going to get problematic. So, the last new books is this one. Let's check the time and put it in. Let's call it 54. So it's 15 minutes onto that, which equals 01, 06. Elizabeth's Sea Dogs. And the War Against Spain. By Brian Best. Now, this is an altogether slightly more complicated book because, yes, I really like it. And again, like the other one, it's not one Hulk picture, but it's still worth getting off and having a look at this cover. Because A, I liked the quality inside, and I could have done this, but I couldn't do this for Peeps Navy because that's a softback book version. But the hardback books, gorgeous. That's the cover. It's nicely done. It's again a 2021 book. So a very, very good vintage 2021 seems. And it's a Frontline book, which is another of the Pen and Sword imprints. I hadn't actually really read Frontline books before, I have to admit. But this one is pretty darn cool. I would say it's more. The reason I say it's more complicated is it's really not heavy on the pictures, but the ones it does have are very good. You have the obligatory picture of a typical Elizabethan warship. You have the Golden Hind. You have various paintings, various castles, a map of Ireland, and of course a bit of a map of the Channel. The theatre of operations and the track of San Martin. I'm presuming from the fact it goes around the United Kingdom for the Armada. Armada. Now, I have to say, the preponderance of black and white photos and black and white of the paintings. You see, this book is £20. This book is £20. But also, this book is £30. So I'm deciding that the point difference means that this one has black and white photographs and this one has coloured. And it's my one critique of this. I would have liked coloured photographs. But a colour of the photos and the paintings to be coloured, because you've got this beautiful, richly coloured front cover, and then the pictures inside are all black and white, well, grayscale. And yeah, but that's my only critique. I'm going to read from it. You're going to hear how good it is. And if you're interested in this, and I am interested, you're going to find a fantastic read. And honestly, if the only thing I can say about a book is that I would have quite liked the pictures to be in colour, and I've been quite happy to have paid a bit more money for them to be in colour if I've been buying it, I don't really consider that a bad critique. Honestly, as things go, I don't. Hello, Neil Woodall. Calvin Gasworth. If viewing your enemy, installing the spike NLOS on your speedboat, expect a bunch of horrible incidents and malfunctions. That's good. The Chieftain made the same point about tactical aircraft in World War II. Often did little damage, but after seeing waves of rockets being lobbed at the enemy, troops thought it would be easy. Yeah. The Iranian Revolution Guard installed Chinese spy copies on their boat, prepared that they will work as in the catalogue. We can hope. Don't worry, Stafford. I'm enjoying listening to the reviews and comments while sorting things out here. Looking forward to watching for the illustrations. Yeah. Well, as you can see, I've been doing quite a lot of sorting out here, so I'm quite something to be sorting out. This is the wood store. This is what the wood store has gone down to, mostly. This is the wood that's left, of the stuff that was left over. This is all being made using wood which was left over. I even have this point here, which was a position of strength I added in for the sole perspective that I might put the mic up there. I might put the mic up there, or I might try and get a roof holder for it to put it up there. But I'm still deciding on that one. Anyway, let's get into reading this book, because it is a gorgeous book, as I said. Carmen, have you seen the pen and sword book on ES Airborne light tanks? Not yet, no. Crazy Look, Happy Meals about $5, and adult meal about $10. So decent book for $5 can always be resold for a price paid. So hard to go wrong. Yeah. Just how typical warship was a Golden Hind? Fairly typical. And you have to remember there's no such thing really as a typical warship because all ships are pretty much one-offs. So it's a fairly typical in that it will give you a bit of an experience. Dub Squad, is it a bit like IKEA furniture when you get bits left over? Considering the amount that me and my very friendly builder who has been working for Iron Brew and Pizza have had to do, I would, with the wood and having to build an entire wall, the wall behind me, as you all know, yeah, I'm not sure if it's typical. I would actually say it's definitely not. It is a kit, but let's put it this way. We've worked out the builders who are assembling this to the plan managed to forget an entire layer, entire level. So we're actually one section of this short the entire way round. That makes up a lot of wood. I haven't said who's been helping me out at all. But yeah, you're probably right if you're thinking about who it could be. There aren't many people who would very kindly work for Iron Brew and Pepperoni Pizza. Well, Meat Feast. Okay, let's get to this one. This is a good chapter. On the 9th of July, 1577, Francis Drake wrote to the government claiming the royal bounty for construction of his new ship, the 150-ton Pelican of Plymouth. She was about 100 foot in length and some 20 feet in beam, and had the appearance of a typical merchantman, but she'd been built to suit Drake's purposes, with a capacious hold and a double-planked hull. She also carried 4 prefabricated pinnaces. Fully laden, she drew 13 feet, which enabled her to operate in shallow coastal waters. Importantly, she also carried... That's like the phrase also carried 14 cannon, the slender, long-range demi-culverins, and a range of smaller ordnance, as well as an army of other weapons. Accompanying her was the Queen's 80-ton bark, Elizabeth, and the 30-ton Marigold, with the 15-ton Swan as victualling vessel. The peace between England and Spain was now over, and yet more conspiracies against the Queen were exposed by agents working for Francis Walsingham. One was a plot to have Philip's half-brother, Don John of Austria, invade England with 10,000 men, depose Elizabeth, and install Mary Stuart on the throne. Don John would then marry Mary, and together they would rule England. Even Lord Burleigh, as always seeking peace with Spain, had to admit that Philip had undermined the peace process, especially by setting Don Juan on it. Spain's diplomatic agent in London, Antonio de Garas, realised something significant was happening, but reported back that Drake was preparing to go to Scotland on a royal mission. Yes, the person you send to Scotland will be Sir Francis Drake. Well-known diplomat, Francis. Definitely. Very diplomatic. Lord Burleigh was suspicious and employed Thomas Doughty to report to him about Drake's intentions. Drake was worried by the rumours about Doughty's meeting with Burleigh, but accepted the explanation that he'd been offered a job of Burleigh's private secretary. Drake made scrupulous preparations for his voyage to the South Sea, and consulted both England's foremost navigator and geographer, Dr. John Dee, and instrument maker William Bourne. Supplied with latest navigation aids, plus a map of the world, which was not accurate by any sense of imagination, Drake's flotilla left Plymouth on the 15th of November 1577. Almost immediately they ran into a terrible storm, which drove the ships into Falmouth Harbour. When the storm abated after 2 days, the battered ships returned to Plymouth for repairs. Finally, they were ready to depart again on the 30th of December. Once out of sight of land, Drake issued his sailing orders. They were bound not for the Mediterranean, as expected, but for the island of Mogador, off Morocco. Drake was accompanied by representatives of his backers, young high-born gentlemen who contributed little to the running of the ships. One was Thomas Doughty, whom Drake had befriended during his brief service in the Irish Wars. Doughty had been a courier for the Earl of Essex, but had been dismissed for some infringement. A plausible personality whom Drake liked. He stirred up a rift between Essex and the Earl of Leicester, which was patched up by Lord Burleigh. Doughty was elegantly dressed and highly educated. He had been a lawyer at the Temple in London and was a scholar of ancient Greek and Hebrew. At that time he was employed by Sir Christopher Hatton, one of Drake's principal backers, as his private secretary. However, for all his apparent friendliness, Doughty began to subtly undermine Drake's authority. Only when they sighted Africa did Drake reveal to his crews the real purpose of the voyage. They were going to the Southern Sea to raid the unprepared Spanish. Most accepted this, although some of the crew who had been expecting to travel to Alexandria felt they'd been misled. There was one subject that particularly riled the seamen, and that was the gentlemen representatives who refused to do any work. The all-too-evident class distinction was having a corrosive effect on the crews. On 27 December, the small fleet anchored at Mogador, a barren island standing about a mile from the mainland. A group of Berber tribesmen arrived on the beach, and Drake sent a boat to meet them. The following day, a larger group appeared, and John Fry, one of the crewmen, was sent to parley with them. Instead, they captured him. It seemed he had got caught up in the civil war currently raging in the area. Taken to the rebels' headquarters, Fry explained the seamen were English, and this seemed to pacify them. He was given their presents and told to return to Mogador, only to find the fleet had already sailed away. Eventually, Fry did manage to return to England on a merchant ship. En route to Cape de Geirr, Drake captured 3 Portuguese fishing vessels off the Guinea coast and seized their catch. He retained one of the fishing vessels and named her the Christopher, in honour of Sir Christopher Hatton. He then sailed to Cape Verde, where they took the provisions from 2 smaller merchant ships. As they approached the island's principal port, Santiago, they spotted a ship making for the harbour and gave chase. It turned out to be a Portuguese merchant ship named the Santa Maria, captained by Nuno da Silva, a 60-year-old man sporting a long white beard. Drake renamed the ship Mary and added her to his small fleet under command of Thomas Doughty. He also took along the experienced Nuno da Silva, and was delighted to discover that da Silva had frequently sailed to Brazil and carried new charts to the continent. As they left Cape Verde, they passed the island of Fogo and witnessed the eruption of a volcano. The last island they visited was Brava, where they stocked up with fruit, vegetables, and fresh water. Drake also released his Portuguese prisoners, letting them have one of his pinnaces to reach Santiago. During the crossing to Brazil, some of the crew returned from the Mary and reported to Drake that Doughty had stolen items from the ship. Drake crossed to the Mary and confronted Doughty with the pilfering, but the young man shifted blame onto Thomas, Drake's younger brother. Drake sent Doughty back to the Pelican, while he himself remained on the Mary. The voyage across the Atlantic was not straightforward. They lay in the doldrums for days before sudden cloudbursts drenched the crews. Finally, they found a steady wind that blew them to Brazil. Meanwhile, Thomas Bounty's aim was to break away from Drake. Doughty's younger brother John allegedly told the crew that they possessed powers of witchcraft and could call upon the devil and inflict spells on their enemies. This was a period when the population was superstitious and believed in witchcraft. And nowhere was more susceptible than the close confines aboard a ship. When Drake sent his messenger onto the Pelican on an errand, Thomas Doughty seized him, bent him over a barrel, and invited the crew to administer a sound beating. When Drake learned of this, he summoned Doughty and humiliated him by sending him to the provision ship Swan. He put his brother Thomas in charge of the Mary and took the Silver over to the Pelican. On 5th April, 54 days after leaving Cape Verde Islands, the Portuguese navigator advised they should not sail too close to Brazil, as there were ships patrolling the coastline. Drake took his advice and turned to port, but soon they were engulfed in a storm coming up from the south, during which the Pelican lost contact with the Christopher. Battling their way down the coast, they made landfall near latitude 32 degrees south. This put them at the mouth of the Rio de la Plata, where they were rested. 2 days later, the Christopher arrived, and together they journeyed upriver to replenish their water barrels and deplete provisions. On 27th April 1578, they left the river estuary and soon ran into another southerly storm, this time losing contact with the Mary and Swan. After a fruitless search for them, Drake continued down the coast of Patagonia, until he reached the Cape at longitude 47 degrees south, which he named Cape Hope. Another storm scattered the fleet, and Drake instructed the signal fires to be lit on the beach to guide the missing ships into the anchorage. But to no avail. Drake then sailed 30 miles further south to be a more suitable bay, which he named Port Desire. He sent the Elizabeth further south, while he searched for missing ships to the north. While the search was being made, Doughty was openly defying Drake's orders and claiming that it was he who was in charge of the expedition. He boasted that he had been approached by Lord Burleigh to be his secretary and confidant. Annoyed at the young man's arrogance, the master of the Swan, John Saracol, took issue with him, and the two came to blows. The Swan was eventually found by the Pelican and joined the other ships at Port Desire.
Trying to keep so many ships together was almost impossible, so Drake ordered the provisions to be removed from the Swan, and the ship was then beached and burned. The antics of the English intrigued the local native tribe, and eventually they met and exchanged presents. Natives began to dance, and Drake ordered the Pelican's musicians ashore to play for them. After a while, the natives dispensed with exchanging presents and began stealing. One native even snatched Drake's red sea cap off his head, but he advised the crew to let it go. This cap was possibly the one that Queen Elizabeth had given Drake before he left Plymouth. After 2 weeks of port desire, Drake prepared to continue his voyage. Having seen Doughty in quiet conversation with the officer and crew of the Pelican, Drake confronted him. In the heated exchange that followed, Drake struck Doughty and ordered him to be tied to the mainmast. He left him tied up for 2 days, after which Drake ordered him to board the Christopher. Doughty objected to this, claiming that he would be killed. Once again, storms separated the ships and Christopher had disappeared. Drake searched for 4 days and found her in a bay. Aware that he could not keep looking for missing ships, he ordered the vessel to be stripped of all useful material before being set on fire. He then went on board the Elizabeth and told the crew that he was sending 2 mutinous men who were stirring up discontent and warning them that if anyone spoke with them, they would be regarded as enemies of the voyage. On the 14th of June, they sailed south for 3 days, heading for a bay named Port St. Julian, which lay within 100 miles of the Magellan Strait. Drake was worried about his brother on the Mary, as she had not been seen since Rio de la Plata 2 months before. Finally, they spotted a ship on the 19th of June and brought her into bay. She was in poor condition and leaking badly as a result of continued battering from the storms. Caulking and general refurbishment restored the Mary, leaving her in better condition to face the Magellan Strait. Drake's ships were now not far from Magellan's sheltered bay, Port St. Julian, the last refuge before they entered the Straits. On the 20th of June, the diminished fleet entered Port St. Julian. There was a low sandy island, which was an ideal place to careen their vessels before attempting a passage through the Straits. Next day, Drake rowed ashore with a few men to look for fresh water and game. He took along with him Surgeon Richard Winterhay, with his longbow and a master gunner named Oliver, armed with an arquebus, and a small party of men. Going ashore, they met 2 Indians armed with small bows. Winterhay indicated that he could fire further, and they competed against each other until his bowstring broke. Just then, an older Indian arrived and began making hostile gestures at Englishmen. As Drake's party withdrew to their boat, one of the Indians fired an arrow at Winterhay, wounding him in the arm. The native fired again, and this time the arrow punctured Winterhay's lung. Oliver aimed his arquebus at the assailant, but it failed to fire. Another Indian fired. His arrow hit Oliver in the chest and pierced him through, killing him. As Drake ordered the men to retreat to the boat, he picked up the arquebus, reprimed it, aimed it, and fired it in him. It caught him in the stomach, which caused the other natives to flee. Winterhay, barely alive, was carried to the ship, where he lingered for 2 days before dying. He was buried with Oliver in a common grave. Although Port St. Julian was a sheltered haven, it had an atmosphere of doom. Back in 1526, Magellan had executed Gaspar Quesada and Luis de Mendoza here, and left 2 more mutineers marooned on the desolate coast. Magellan's gibbet was found, and the ship's carpenter used the wood to make drinking tankards. It is a very, very interesting book. Right. Let's look at questions. Could your shed fit inside a Blackburn? No. It's a bit too wide. Mm-hmm. Not a wolf, agree. My dad would have given them one heck of an earful on Airbus at least. Yeah, I might have done the same. Artificial intelligence. No one has seen his office from the outside yet. Hint wings. Yeah. Dylan, I still find it hard to believe that Drake went around the world in a ship as small as the Pelican. It's a lot of bravery. Grace Tusky, is that like an early version of gunboat diplomacy? Yes, certainly. It does look big enough to get an Admiralty chart table in there. It is just about big enough for that. Financial intelligence, medieval peeps, the best psyops. Complete with getting medieval in them with an old ultra-violent beatdown. They made drinking guns out of a gibbet. Yep, they made drinking mugs out of the gibbet. Yes, they did. It happens. What can I say? The British have a certain sense of humour, which apparently has survived centuries.
I love the difference between the actual explorers and what the high school tells you about them. Vasco da Gama comes to mind. Ah, yes, Vasco. I love Vasco. Mm. It's always fun when you're talking about Vasco da Gama. You know it's going to be an interesting day. So it's 01 13 6. That one. Right then. Definitely. I can understand Drake doing the voyage. Our 25-foot sailboat is Blue Sea rated at hull keel. Blue water. Yeah. It's not exactly fun. Neil Waddle, isn't every historical figure studied to school? Quite possibly. You have to remember, there is, as I always tell people, or tell my students, there is school history where things, to an extent, are simplified because, not because a good school teacher will still cover the ground anyway. It's simplified from the perspective it's got to be taught in the year, and it's got to be taught. All these things have got to be covered in the limited lesson time you have available, and it's got to be fitted in the exam, and that things get pared down as a result. But, and this is what you have to remember, that doesn't necessarily mean that's bad history you're being taught. It's very good history you're being taught. It's just not the full story of history. That's the thing. They don't teach you bad history. They just don't necessarily teach you the full story because they don't have time for it. Now, there's a reason I'm quickly doing those books because I just had a message which said there might be a fluffy research assistant inbound. In which case, they will want that particular fluffy research assistant will want access to a certain space. So I'm just getting the bag out of the way from them. I don't know. Things I do for my fluffy research assistants. Carmen, can I request a review of the landing craft but tank book by Osprey? Yes, you can. I don't have a copy down with me. It's up in. I think my copy's up in the office, but I will go and grab it at some point and put it in next week or something. There's God, like how Columbus. Yeah, we won't go into that, but Columbus was really. Let's be honest. It's one of the things.
Columbus has this reputation as an explorer, Drake as a bit of a pirate, and yet out of the two, if you're a local, probably Drake was the more respectful. Probably, he says. There is a limit. There is a limit on that. I was just checking up on the fluffs. Yes, one is apparently inbound. Cameron, I'm convinced my PA teachers want me to know Washington hated cherry trees and Lincoln never told a lie, and that's it. Oh. Well, Lincoln was a very good politician. He never told a lie, but that doesn't mean he always told the truth. Got to remember, there is the truth, the whole truth, and the absolute truth. Those are sometimes different things. After all, if you lie by omission, you're not telling an actual lie. You're just not giving all the details. Can a 3-day boat, but can manage a 5-day extended voyage easily. Well, that's always useful. The occasion. The FRA is not a typical lapdog. No, he isn't. Under any sense of circumstances would he be considered a typical lapdog. He considers himself a lapdog. No one else really does, though, but he does. So, Scott, I think a lot of school history is sanitized. Yes and no. You can imagine there was once a teacher I was working with who was teaching A-level sociology, I think it was. And there is a whole module in A-level sociology which is really, really weird, and you have to be very careful teaching it. Because, and if you judge the class wrong, and you approach it from, let's say, an unwise angle, you can end up with a lot of problems very quickly. Okay, Gun, I think you got that wrong. Washington myth was that he would not tell a lie, not Lincoln. Even Washington, certainly. Oh, Washington. Yeah. Trent Langham, how are the office working for you? Comfortable to your office? Well, at the moment, I'm using a ladder as a footstool, so yes, it's comfortable. Yeah, well, my apologies. I need to find out. He's been being sarcastic, Fond. I agree with you. Spent 10 years teaching 4th to 6th graders. Spent time each lesson dropping in yes but lessons. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, that sounds like Carmen. I'll never forget my old history teacher, very lovely, the sweet little one, who was going to retire when I entered sixth form, but she stayed till we finished and always gave us the content. And little bits related, not strictly the curriculum. I always remember a teacher once stood in front of me and said, there is the history according to the textbook, and there is the history according to Alex, history according to me, there's the history according to Alex, and there is the actual history. You have to, the class has to decide which version they want. I would go, what's the difference between the history according to Alex and the history according to... Said, yours is the history which has all the details and context and everything added in, which takes about 4 times as long to tell us. So, the book I grabbed and said I was going to do first, for amphibious warfare, and the vehicles, is The Civil War. A complete photographic history. Now, why have I got this book out when I'm talking about amphibious vehicles? Well, it seems rather appropriate when we're talking about Washington and Lincoln. Well, there is a reason for this. For starters, the US Navy in this is something to behold. Rather gorgeous at certain points. I have to make sure I find the right chapter because this is one of those books where I can easily get distracted. Just got so many pictures. Oh, yes. Oh. Ooh, that's good. Ooh, ah. Ooh. Let's go for 786. Yeah, that's the section I'm looking for. Oh, so many good books. So many good pictures. Oh, seriously, this book is so cool. If you're at all interested in the American Civil War, this book is a must-have. And I'm not talking as a coffee table book. I'm talking as a book to spend about a month solidly reading. And you will spend a month solidly reading because it's just full of things like this. And you'll spend about a month poring over the pictures going, what can I learn in this picture? Every time I'm doing a book or doing anything about the US Civil War, I turn to this one and go, show me pictures, then I will search for the pictures. And then I will find for the pictures. So. Oh. Hello, Big Fluff. Hello, you. Hello. Oh, alright. There we go. Hello. Hello. Yes. Hello.
You're for 2 minutes.
Yeah, we're fine for 2 minutes, aren't we? Hello, you. What are you doing? Hello. Hello. Crack does interludes music. I get interludes of a poodle going, hello. You are certain you are a lapdog, aren't you? Yes, you are. You thoroughly believe you are a lapdog. Hello, everyone. I will get back to the book in a second. Until hello, you. Until I can, let's answer questions. Ooh. Mission, have you read any of the 3 Warship hero novels by Ian McIntosh? I think I've read one of them. I think I have. I'm not sure I've read... I think that's about... I don't think I've read more than one so far. That's good. Washington's first lie to the Continental Congress. I have any military experience. He did have some. As a lowly junior officer in the colonial forces, basically getting shot at and saved by various people. He did quite well. Kahan, mine said to my parents, you have a very intelligent son, except that he can't write it down, but he knows awful lot, and it's about knowledge once started writing. We'll talk it for days. Ah. Well. Sounds to me like you should... oh, hello. Oh. We're getting comfortable now. We're getting comfy. We're comfy. That's good. We've got a whole lot to be comfy on.
Neil, because of the many riverine and actual beach landings done by the Federal forces? Yes, and by the Confederate. You have to remember the Confederates did amphibious operations as well as the Federals. The Feds always get the Union forces always get all the kudos for the things, but the Confederates do some amphibious operations as well. What are you up to? Neil Waddle, not to mention the day in 1864 when a horse battery sank a river ironclad. Oh, yes. Desmond, I like that Washington was shocked at being offered command of the Continental Army, having turned up to every meeting in a general's uniform he had made for himself. Look. Image. What I said earlier, half the battle is image. Turn up looking like a general. Dress for the job you want. I know. I'm not sure what job I'm currently dressed for. I think it's probably dog bed, but you know, hey-ho. Technically, a horse is an amphibious vehicle. Yes, it is. I'm fluffy money. Let me make you money. Ah, yes. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I come to say hi. Not because I wanted my belly rub, but because I wanted to say hi.
That's good. You seem to be jumped on by some kind of fluffy bear. Yes. Well, you know. It's one big lapdog. Yes. Yes. He does. He believes he's a lapdog. And frankly, he's big enough. No one's going to tell him he isn't.
Oh.
Right. Aww. Senator Ted Cruz left his poodle Snowflake behind when he fled Texas for Cancun, Mexico. It was sad. Photo taken by a reporter of dog looking out the door of Cruz's 600. Why would you leave the dog behind? I always take mine on holiday. Geirr, how did Churchill last so long as First Sea Lord in World War I? Because actually he's surprisingly good at certain things. One of them is administration, the other one is in going around and making speeches. And most important than that, he doesn't lack in energy. And you need someone very active and very energetic for the role. The dog would have gone through quarantine if it went to Mexico. Well, that's the thing. I wouldn't have gone to Mexico. If my dog had to go through quarantine to go there, then I wouldn't have been going there on holiday. If I've got to go somewhere to work, I go somewhere to work. If I'm going on holiday, well, the dog's part of the family too. No, what's wrong with a nice belly rub? Currently, he has found, and he has decided that the space beneath me here is his space. It's his office space. Carmen, this history nerd would know the end of fleet research would love to give him a stroke. So you, yes. I do realise if I do any public lectures where the fluffy research assistants aren't allowed to visit, I will be in trouble. So I have to make sure anything I do, they can come along. Okay, don't worry. That's fine. You sure he wants to go? He's quite happy here if he wants to stay.
Yeah, it's warm, isn't it?
Yes, it's warm. Basically, he's happy wherever it's warm.
You're missing the carpet.
Yeah, it's just a complaint. The dog's complaining there is not a carpet in here. Hello, man, 1640. Don't most countries require foreign animals to go through quarantine entry? They do. Might explain why most of my holidays are in the UK. Also, I'm surprised with this is completely off topic, but I'd have thought a senator with the seniority and importance of Ted Cruz would have, I don't know, a house which would have decent security, which would mean they would have a continuous power supply, so would have some means of, I don't know, a diesel generator or independent power supply so that they wouldn't run out of power if there was a power cut. I would have thought some means would, but that could be me. Sometimes I hide on because it was my sister. She is she is the one who tends to set up, but she does have a habit of leaving the door open, which is fun for her, not so fun for the rest of us. Hey, by gum. Hey Dawson, a name, the dog kennel. I'm going to be opening this up to patron suggestions, and I put a patron vote as well. Mm-hmm. Come. If you're ever doing one in West Wales, I will ensure he has many strokes and well taken care of while you're working. Honestly, not going to steal your dog. Oh. Don't worry, he usually comes back after he's been well patted. What did she borrow this? What book did she borrow? This is the other reason I'm moving books into here. I have a great big padlock, which I'm the only one who has the key to. It's amazing. Right then. The Modern Army wasn't that chapter, it was this one. Mm-hmm. It's always fun when the dog fluffy research assistant comes in and you completely lose your place. Let's see. 786. I was 50 pages short. Anyway, so this is the chapter on Damn the Torpedoes. And it is lovely. It is a gorgeous book, but it does have all about the amphibious warfare going on. The campaigns that failed, the campaigns that succeeded. It has all the pictures in it. So, why am I putting this in here? Why am I talking about this? Well, the theme for today's discussion is the thing I've seen going on most of the time when talking about amphibious warfare. Taiwan keeps coming up. And the idea that you can dash across the straits. Well, you can, in theory. You can dash across the straits, in theory. In practice, you would have to move a lot of stuff pretty quickly. Now, the question is, would China be happy to settle for getting a foothold and then expanding it, in which case they could do a small amount of force and then mobilize to reinforce it, or would they want to go for a coup de main? Now, the thing is, if they go for a coup de main, then they have to take a massive force, which gives time for Western powers, etc., other people to react and put something in the way and go, no. But if they go foothold to expand, that gives times for other powers to react in a different way, and there's no plausible deniability. They can't just brush it off as an exercise. It's fun. King's Road. Cruz's house did have power. He was just abandoning his constituents during a crisis. Galtar, Please do not apply logic to US senators. If there is one thing I can tell you about US politics, it's that not a single person on either side understands real reality logic. I am getting persuaded of that perspective, although that could be spending a lot of time talking to Drac. Bijan, the press did report that a security guard was looking after the Santa Cruz's dog in the palace, and thought it was great, a sad little dog. That's cruel. Get that from him. Your sister is an engineer. She will probably not be slowed down by a mere padlock. No, actually, the sister is not the one I'm worried about. That'd be the one who taught me how to pick locks. Mm-hmm. Bad Guy 8829. Finding a book that I already have a signed copy of. That is a good book. Carmen, I have my suggestions as possible, which I made for Patreon. I'm going to have a look at them, and I said they're going to be put up tonight. It's going to be turned on tonight. The thing will go live for the votes. Carl Tiger, I've actually been saying to my friends, it's funny how the current US establishment and the old guard USSR seem to converge. It's worrying. System may decide it's easier to remove a wall than I'll pick a lock. Potentially. That might be why that wall was built by me. Monday 1640. How skilled of a picker are you? Vision. There is a new scary book coming out, except about a scary war between China and US over Taiwan. China hacks US military and the power grid, and the US responds with nukes. Depends who's president. Neil, a quick jump and then expand may be the best chance to stop the invasion. A build-up just means more anti-ship missiles than rounds and the magazines to stop them. Potentially. Let's see. The one thing you hope Taiwan won't behave like is the next book. So it's 1:43. So add 139. Mm. 54. Now, Countdown, really though, that has the dash across the channel issue changed over the last 100 years. Speeds have both vessels and vessels, but I promise you, not really. Maybe Melanie. Not a Wolf. Brings up a good question. Is crippling a country's infrastructure equal to nukes? Depends. How many people die in hospitals? The commanders reinforce my belief in quantity over quality at times. Trouble is, quantity is a quality all of its own. To paraphrase many political leaders over centuries. Did we just skip World War One? No, we didn't skip World War One. We'll be going back to World War One. This is Geirr Haarr's The Gathering Storm. It's the first in Geirr Haarr's trilogy. and this covers September 1939 to April 1940. So it's the period before the invasion. And what I want to talk about isn't actually any of the chapters, normal chapters. I'm going to talk about Allied and neutral merchant ships lost 1st of September 1939 to 8th April 1940. 3rd of September 1939. Athenia, British, 13,581 tons, position west of Ireland, sunk by U-30. Womp. Torpedoed without warning, 112 killed. Also on 3rd of September. Lloyd Vygotsky, Polish, 133 tons, position Baltic, off Hell, sunk by S-23, sunk by torpedo from LS-Boot or Schnellboot, i.e. E-boats, as we sometimes call them. 4th of September, the Ionis Charis, Greek, 4,348 tons, off Gdynia, sunk by aircraft, damaged by bombs and scuttled by Poles as Gdynia as block ship. 4th September, Kusti, Greek, 3,933 tons, off Vesterbro, sunk by mine, no casualties, wreck was later salvaged. 4th of September, Nordstrand, Danish, 300 tons, west of Horns Reef Light, sunk by mine, no comment. 5th of September, Bosnia, British, 2,407 tons, off Cape Ortegal, U-47 under command of Priam, stopped by gunfire and sunk by torpedo after crew had taken the boats. 1 killed. 5th of September, Royal Scepter, British, 4,853 tons, north of Cape Finisterre, U-48 Schutz, stopped by gunfire and sunk by torpedo after crew had abandoned ship. 1 killed, 32 picked up by Browning. 2nd of September, Manar, British, 7,242 tons, southwest of Cape de Rodoca, U-38 under commander Liebe, sunk by torpedo when crew fired back and sent SSS signal. 7 dead, 63 survivors. 6th of September, Rio Claro, British, 4,086 tons, southwest of Cape Finisterre, U-47 Prion, sunk by torpedo after crew had taken onto boats, rescued by Stad Maastricht. 7th September, Garverton, British, 1,777 tons, northwest of Cape Finisterre, U-47 Prion, sunk by gunfire after crew had taken to boats. And this goes on. And on. And on. And on. You've got things sunk by Graf's Bay, Deutschland, Graf's Bay, British, Belgian, Lithuanian, Dutch, Italian. Even the Japanese is destroyed off Harwich by a destroyer-laden mine. You start to realise very quickly there is something going on when you read this sort of file. It's good. Ryan Paulson, Taiwan's Deputy Defense Minister Shang Xingping has confirmed that Taipei has decided to buy a mobile US-made Harpoon coastal defense system. Makes sense. Carmen, why don't the US just give up with the Ford and come to the UK and say, please fix? Because they can't, because Camel Lairds would probably charge them an arm and a leg to fix the Ford. Let's be honest, they're the ones who'd have to do it. Probably in one of the Southampton dry docks. Vision. In the new novel by former USN Admiral and USMC officer, US drops a nuke on Chinese naval base after losing 2 carrier groups, in part to hacking, followed by air and missile attacks. Fun. Yeah, the thing I would always point out with hacking and a lot of things is that the base point at which you can defend against hacking is why is your computer system on your aircraft carrier, or very important thing, connected to the internet in the first place. It should at least be air-gapped. There is no reason a military internet, maybe, but no reason it should be connected up to the civilian internet. It's the basic, easiest way to make hacking very difficult. Make sure your internet and intranet aren't connected. The internet and your intranet aren't connected. What book? Oh, this is the book I'm talking about. Let's see. Vision. That was a PDF published by the Swedish National Library. Cool. But honestly, the Americans can fix the falls themselves. The British could be called in to fix it, but the Americans could fix the falls themselves. The question is, and this is the point, are they prepared to provide the money to fix it? Because we know what stuff is wrong, and it's just they're trying to do it at a certain price point level, and the question is actually, can you get those things all to work at that price point level, or are you going to have to push it slightly higher? Pretty much that's what they do. Have one suite of PCs for general crew use connected to the public internet. And honestly, the public internet one can be turned off quite quickly. And that's usually fairly secure as well. Regarding the air gap problem, the scary way around it for the air gap, there are some scary ways around it, but there are ways that it's going to sound strange. A ship is slightly more difficult than a physical site. That's good. Like how the RN SSBNs use Windows XP, but given they're not connected to the internet, not vulnerable to being hacked. They don't use Windows XP. Okay? They have Windows XP, or at least a version of it, a fully secure version of it, like most people, most things do. They usually have a generation back where they know all the holes and the holes are all being filled as a booting system. And then they have a very different operating system which runs them. It's problematic, but it should be okay. It's fairly secure. Cajun. There apparently is an air gap between the systems, but the networks still get penetrated, as the terminals aren't always as protected as they should be, and USB sticks exist. This is the point at which you start ripping out the USB ports. Shumack. I think best indication that hacking is going to be more difficult, you'll think, is that it is that a major company gets hacked every other month. When has the military last been hacked? Military are less likely to talk about being hacked than major companies are, because major companies have to admit it publicly. because of financial reasons. British company militaries don't. But also, I would argue that most of the militaries tend to be. Which one? Sorry, I'm turning back for them. Tend to be more subdivided up. That's the thing you usually find with the militaries, is that they have more of a subdivision. They have more of a no. They have more. It's going to sound strange. Companies usually, even if they're working from the cloud, will have some sort of centralized server, which if you can get into, gives you access to everything. Militaries are less likely to do that because their whole thing is about being as distributed as possible, because that's how they ensure against basically being wiped out, and that means it makes them slightly more difficult to hack. King, I thought the OS being used with Windows for Warships. That's an often theorized one. Counterpoint, fun fact, the Space Shuttle ran Windows 95, a NASA variant, until it was decommissioned. It was debugged by NASA, so it was worth not changing things. Yeah. Editor and James. Sweden discovered a fake officer that had worked for 20 plus years without being detected. He had even worked in NATO headquarters in Brussels. Google, Sweden fake officer didn't spy at NATO or harm security. I know the Swedish military is, interesting, but I didn't realize they would miss an entire officer. That's the basic point, as Sean Max made there. Which parts? DoD Steve's computer or carrier? Those are very different things. It's a very different level of security. Right, so, next one is an oldie, but a goodie. Very old. It's an old book, but it's a good one. And I like to use it because when I start going through this sort of book, and people go, when was it published? 1971, first edition, this edition, 1982. And they go, well, that sounds like you basically tell them after you've talked about the vehicle that's been described. You go, is that a brand new vehicle? No, that was one which was 40 years ago. So, Armoured Fighting Vehicles of the World by Christopher F. Foss. Oh, also, while I remember, I'm on this Friday's Armchair Ambrose. It's gonna be fun. Battle of Java Sea. Hopefully I'll be doing it from the... Oh, well, I will be doing it from this office, but maybe even me doing it from my PC. Who knows? By then I might have it set up. So, what happy little vehicle am I going to pick to read to you and see if you can guess which it is? Mm-hmm. Conceived and prototype built and placed in production in 1965, the vehicle is essentially a 2.77mm wheelbase modified Land Rover chassis with an armoured body. In addition, the engine and radiator have been armoured. That was first used by the Royal Ulster Constabulary. Since then, however, the British Army have taken over the vehicles. It's recognised by the British Army as an internal security vehicle. The first model into production was the Mark I. This had hull armour of 7.25mm and was powered by a 4-cylinder Rover petrol engine, developing 67 brake horsepower at 4,000 RPM. That must have been so fast. This was followed by the Mark II, which had a 4-cylinder petrol engine, developing 77 brake horsepower at 4,000 RPM. Oh my lord. The Mark III has thicker hull armour of 8.25mm, which is resistant to the standard 7.62mm NATO round. Also, it is powered by a 6-cylinder petrol engine, developing 91 brake horsepower at 4,500 RPM. The latest version to enter production is the Mark IV. Shown for the first time in 1980, this has improved arm protection and is powered by a V8 3.5-litre petrol engine coupled to permanent 4-wheel drive. The SP303 is the Mark III with a modified turret for anti-hijack patrols at airports and other high-risk areas, while the SP404 is similar but based on Mark III. Probably Mark IV, I'm guessing. There is a separate entry for the SP301 and SP401 APCs. Anyone will guess what that was? Gideon, we appear to have sidetracked the stream. It happens occasionally, don't worry. Is Jingle going to come? Yes, hopefully. Crossing fingers. At least one cultist man planning on making an appearance. I'm worried now for many reasons. Ferret, Bulldog or Warrior? Shoreland, armoured patrol car. What you don't want to be in. But, believe it or not, it's on the opposite page from the Ferret. I did like the Ferret family light scout vehicles. There's some pretty cool ones. You have the Mark I and the Mark II, III, and the Mark I just... the Mark I is just basically titchy. Oh, this one's a really good one. The was developed during the Korean War. It is basically a modified with a turret, T-42 turret mounting a T-119 gun. The chassis was given a better cooling system, improved hull armour, and different electrical equipment. They were built by Detroit Tank Arsenal and the American Locomotive Company. They may be seen with two types of blast deflector. One has a T-type and the other a cylindrical type.
Variants. A combat engineer vehicle with a 165mm gun. None currently remain in service when this book is published. A flamethrower tank. Trials only. Naval is currently hunting. A version with a 105mm gun. The French DTAT has fitted with the complete gun of the AMX 30 MBT. An Italian with a 105mm gun. Otto Malera has rebuilt one with the 105mm gun of the M60, as well as fitting the vehicle with the engine, transmission, electrical systems of the M60. Project only, no production undertaken. The British, with swing-fire anti-tank guided weapons. This was shown at the Farnborough Air Display in 1966 and was the proposed only. With a bridge, the Italian company of Astra Spa of Piacenza has built a bridge layer on the chassis. At each end of the bridge is a ramp that can be used as a pile, thus allowing two bridges to be used. Korean. The Korean Army have adopted a number of these, so they can be used as ARVs. The gun has been removed and an A-frame fitted on the glacis plate with the winch inside the turret. The rope being taken out through the mantlet where the main gun was fitted. Spanish. Chrysler Spain is carrying out a major modification program, which includes the installation of a Continental Amphibious 1790 2.8 diesel engine. When this conversion has been completed, the vehicle is known as the Shomak, you're right. It is the M47. Counterwing resistant to 7.62mm NATO. So more armor than a Leopard one. Possibly. Cajun. Was that what they ripped the sides off to make the Snatch Land Rovers? I'm gonna. Third squad. A 15-inch thick armor plate is resistant to 7.62 NATO because lawyers don't let anyone use the word proof just in case. It's the M47 medium tank. Ooh. Ooh. So here's a fun thing. The first prototype was completed in October 1967 and was known as the... A total of 15 prototypes were built by July 1968. These vehicles were armed with a 20mm cannon. Development and production of the vehicles undertaken by FMC under the supervision of the... A production order for them was awarded to FMC in June 1970, and the first vehicle was delivered to on the 26th of August 1971, with final deliveries being made in 1974. A total of 942 were built for the... The is fully amphibious, being propelled in the water by two water jets. It is constructed of welded aluminium armor. It has torsion bar and tube suspension and is fitted with infrared driving lights. This is armed with a 12.7mm machine gun in the end. And its armor ranges from 10mm to 45mm in thickness. BV302 coming up. Bill Bellamy and troop leader describes how having been shot at by a German twin military, they found their tank was actually a training model without armor. Ouch! Let me put this at variants.
Landing at, well, I can't list any of the variants because all of them have the title in of what this is. AA7V? Ooh, you're very close. You're very, very close. You're very, very close. I'm going to allow it. It's the LVTP-7 Armoured Amphibious Assault Vehicle. And yes, originally it was armed with a 20mm cannon, but someone decided that'd be too much firepower for the US Marine Corps, so let's give them a machine gun. Because, you know, they're not going to have to go anywhere where they need a cannon. And yes, for those of you who are wondering, all the vehicles were built and developed, all the 942 were delivered by 1974, so the youngest any of these vehicles are in US service is 47 years. Yeah. 47 years old. Still not managed to replace it. There again, though, somewhere in here. Ah, yes. This was developed from an earlier variant, and the first prototype was completed in 1961, and production commenced in 1963. Production was undertaken by GK and Sankey, and has now been completed. Prototypes were powered by a B-81 petrol engine and were called something. Trojans. First productions were the Mark I and Mark 1-1, followed by the Mark II and the Mark II-1. It is made amphibious by erecting a screen and is repelled in water by its tracks. It is fitted with an NBC system and has infrared driving license. It can be adapted into the following roles: mortar, 81mm mortar with a transverse of 360 degrees, 160 rounds of ammunition, crew of 6 and a laden weight of 16,400 kilograms, or 16.4 tons. Command has map boards, additional radios, crew of 7, laden weight of 15,500 kilograms, or 15.5 tons. A large tent can be erected at the rear of the vehicle to give additional working space. Recovery, fitted with a winch subframe, EF anchor, 107 meters of cable, max line pull 2-part track, 18,299 kilograms, or 18.3 tons. Winch is driven from the PTO on the engine transfer case. Can be fitted with wombat, can be fired mounted or dismounted. 14 rounds of ammunition are carried, crew of 4, weight 15,870 kilograms, or that's 15.9 tons broadly speaking. A load carrier can carry 3,670 kilograms of cargo, or 3.7 tons roughly. Mine layer can tow the bar mine laying equipment and can be fitted with a Ranger anti-personnel mine layer system. Ambulance can carry 4 stretchers, 2 each side, or 2 stretchers on one side and 5 seated patients on the other, crew of 2. Carl Gustav, bar across fighting compartment on which is mounted a Carl Gustav anti-tank weapon. Artillery control fitted with FACE, field artillery computer equipment. Radar can be fitted with the ZB-298 ground surveillance radar. Navigation can be fitted with navigation equipment. Cymbeline fitted with the EMI Cymbeline mortar locating radar. This version has replaced the Green Archer mortar locator radar. GPMG, many of these have been fitted with a Peak engineering turret armed with 7.62mm GPMG. Radar, a few are fitted with a turret-mounted radar cannon and serves with the Berlin Brigade. And sonic detection, the Royal Artillery used some of these, fitted with a Plessey sound ranging link to locate enemy artillery positions. And there are also variants using a modified hull. Carrier maintenance fully tracked. This version is fitted with the HIAB crane and carries special tools and equipment. Cruise 4. Swing fire launcher vehicle.
This version has 2 launcher boxes for the Swingfire anti-tank guided weapon. A total of 14 missiles are carried. It also carries a 7.62mm GPNG and has a crew of 3. And signals vehicle. Do we all have a guess what I was talking about? I think Dylan Lair did get it the quickest. It is the FV432. It is the vehicle which has been in service with the British Armed Forces for so long that I'm honestly not sure what they're going to get, what they're going to replace it with. And here's the thing. We talk about replacing the Warrior. We talk about what vehicles we want to get made. Here's the vehicle you really need to replace in the British Armed Forces. You need a vehicle that you can cost effectively replace these, because otherwise we're going to have a vehicle in service which is still in frontline duty for another decade or so, which is already, let's see, well, theoretically, some of them could be 58 years old. In other words, they've got through their midlife crisis. Financial intelligence. 1 in 20 million versus 3 to 5, 50 cals. I pick B, thanks. I can understand that, but they weren't often the issue with B. Joe, also once heard that the bigger use of machine guns in US military's logistics branch, the biggest use escort and security of supply trucks. That wouldn't surprise me. Neil, hand me the 64 color box, please. My palette is refined. Oh. Then that gotta be 432. Yep. Dev Scott, the US Marine Corps doesn't get 20mm because they look too much like crayons and top brass prefer. No, stop being cruel. Sure, Mac, it's the British box that I can't remember the name of. Well, originally it was called the Trojan. This is what I think. The F432. Trojan. Not a wolf. The AAVs are so odd I've heard of Marines having to weld floor plates aboard ship because they are rusting through. That wouldn't surprise, would it? Man, 6040. What do you mean that we're going to replace it with? Why do you need to replace it? They built it properly and it'll last another 58 years. That's the problem. Sometimes, I swear, people do think these things will last forever. They won't. They really won't. Oh, that's helpful. I've just got a message from my mum saying I've locked you out. Sorry. Thank you. But so I have to call them when I want to get when I eventually finish this. Yeah. Right. Turn the heating off. I have a fancy socket on the heater, which I can remote control from my phone. Just makes life a little bit easier. Strub, how long does it take to make a ship old? Let's put it this way. It depends how hard you use the hull. Hence the number of Type 23s who have surprisingly new-looking hulls. Because if they're going to serve for much longer, they've had to have the hull plating replaced. B-52 laughs and remembers when it was 50 years old, yeah. To be replaced immediately after the B-52. Anything. Should be a hybrid. Preferably total electric, but not there yet. Electric is quiet and cold. We can always dream. John Shea, so you're telling me that some of those BV-302 are just under the age of the B-52? Yeah, pretty much. Right, Chelsea, we've kind of got to a Middle Ages phase of warfare where the equipment doesn't really change for decades. US Marine Corps is now getting a new APC, which is always nice. But if they are going to replace the AAVs with the Super AVs, then you're going to have to start reworking the unit strength. Simple put, Super AV can take 8 in the back if they're fully armed and you don't want them squished. AAV can take a lot more. Many security with proper maintenance and repairs, that should last another 30 to 40 years. We'll see if the proper repairs and maintenance have been in place. If it doesn't, at least someone understands security. Security. I didn't say anything about colour of crayon. I said you asked Marines what their favourite flavour of crayon is. You see, in Britain, the Royal Marines have a deserved reputation for being some of the smartest in the armed forces, some of the smartest personnel. And they do seem to, the amount of our Royal Marines I know who are very, very heavily qualified, and you're sort of going, yeah, this is an interesting conversation I'm having. What rank are you again? Oh, you're that, and you've got that. Okay. It's quite worrying sometimes for anyone, I think, whoever tries to fight the Royal Marines. Hello, Juno119. Had a late stream. Don't worry. Curious if anyone build an amphibious submarine. Curious how a surface force will get close to a defended shore. They'll push back the defences. It's the same way we've always done it. Nicest way. Most of the places you want to go tend to have populations already in them. So you either have to land away from them and march to where they are. Tends to be British methodology. Or, and this is the fun thing, you have to beat back the defences. Beating back the defences, that can take time, money, and effort. And can be quite complicated. Neil, lol, a number of Marines in a vehicle. Stuffed a full company into 40 individual max vehicles several times. Yeah, standing room only. And Hunts, defended shore is now much further out of concept. Yes, the range has expanded. So is the range of the tools you're going to attack it with. As I think Greg has pointed out a few times on build fronts, and I tend to agree with it. You have the contest between, yes, I have weapons with this maximum range, but first I have to find a target at that maximum range. And that's going to be difficult. So the odds are it's going to meet somewhere in the middle, i.e. it's not going to be you'll find your target at your maximum range of your weapons, and it's not going to be that they can that you meet somewhere at the sort of in the range of their defensive weapons. So they're going to meet up somewhere in the middle, and it's not going to be easy, but it's what you have to do if you want to do that. Brent Paulus, hello. What is your opinion on British 7.5 as on the Hawkins class? Was the 8-inch on the County class clean slate? 7.5 was a bit of a disappointment. It was supposed to be a sweet spot, and it turned out not to be. So that's why they end up reworking going to the 8-inch. But really, the 8-inch is the development of the 6-inch more than 7.5. If you look at the breach mechanism and the shock recoil systems that they develop it from. So yes, 7.5, you can call it a clean slate, but it's not a clean slate entirely, as it's not from, but it's not a clean slate vis-a-vis the 7.5. It's not a clean slate entirely. Actually, plus Doc is right. Nothing lasts forever. Like the F-14 Grumman really made a good jet with all the accidents in it. Really made a good jet with all the also accidents in the USN. But while in Iranian service, nearly half were lost in accidents during the Iran-Iraq War. Yeah. Can't learn. Are the Royal Marines seen as being as elite relative to the Army as the USMC? By the public, I mean, not necessarily in actual fact. Yeah, the Royal Marines are viewed as an elite, definitely. It's called there's a whole advertising recruitment video, recruitment advert, which based on that, which basically goes, have you got the commando state of mind? Royal Marines are considered elite. The main trouble they have is being differentiated from the Army, because people sometimes presume they're part of the Army, not the Navy. And they are very much part of the Navy, and they like being part of the Navy, because if they were part of the Army, then they would have to do a lot of... See, one of the things, being part of the Marines means you get to be a Marine. Being part of the Army means you have to do a lot of staff work to get promoted and get up. But because the Royal Marines are only one brigade, broadly speaking, they can avoid a lot of things which they don't like. The Iran-Iraq War, the Iranian F-14s had a less than ideal pass flight. That they did. Okay, this one. Or this one. Yeah, let's go for Warships inside out. This is the trouble with some of the books. In some places they've been stored. They honestly don't get... how do I put it? This kind of got ripped up today on transit, so I do apologise for the back. But it does have a very cool picture in it of, which I use as the thing, of my previous fluffy research assistant, Mozart. With wearing mega shades at the time. Yes, he's another poodle. Now, this book is good because it is basically all of the ships inside, and it helps me explain when I want to talk about box. So, I need to make sure I have this book written in. And it's 2 hours 29, 2 hours 30, let's say. Warships. Inside Out. By Robert Jackson. And all Flinton, all light forces should be applied as can you carry heavy loads long distance while we promise transport provided at some point? Mm-hmm. I think Her Majesty's Royal Marine Corps. We usually just call them the RMC. Right, so that'll up. And this is an LHA, a Tarot class. What we probably call an LHD these days. And that's a advertisement for Helston Railway. Which is a cool thing if you're ever down in Cornwall to try one. Anyway, so it's amazing some of the things I have to use as bookmarks. I have far more. I collect bookmarks, yet I still have more books than bookmarks. So, probably always will do. You've got a dock. So you've got your stuff to get your heavy stuff ashore. You have to have storage for your heavy stuff. So you have ramps, access on multiple levels to get them up to the hangar deck, so the light stuff can be moved up for the flight deck, for the helicopters to carry it in. And you can get the heavy stuff, i.e. the tanks, down to the well deck to put on the landing craft. These ships are one-stop shops for an amphibious assault. They carry hundreds, thousands of troops. They carry all the logistics for them. They carry all the equipment for them. What is always a surprise to me is that more nations do not go for these. Because as your flagship for a small to medium power, this would seem to be an exceptional thing. Because you've got your Vistal aircraft. Okay, you probably want to, but if you're a small nation and you don't have the big carriers the Americans have, you want to ski jump on it. You'll probably want to have a less crew-intensive system than the Americans have, because the Americans do like to overcrew their things. But this is it. It's a one-stop shop for capabilities. It's a great system. Interesting enough, you don't build these if you're only thinking about acting locally. So we keep talking about China and Taiwan. China's building LHAs. We all know that. We see them. We've got pictures of them. I talk about them on occasion. Sometimes I'm even paid to talk about them. Disturbingly enough, we can all be freaked out about that. The point that you always have to come back to when you're talking about those ships is that you don't build them if you're trying to act locally. Why? Because if you're acting locally, i.e. within range of your own aircraft, why do you need something which can act as an aircraft carrier? Okay. All you need to do, what is more sensible, is you churn out rather large landing craft types. And the British Army has a few of those. That will make the distance. Because you churn out those and then you see your survivability. So, if someone's building those,
and you're China, who should be worried about them if China's building them? Probably the people in the South China Sea. Because that is about the range at which you start needing to have that sort of capability. And taking artificial islands is great. And taking reefs and making artificial islands is great. A, you probably want the ability to recapture them. But B, well, we've taken reefs and we've built artificial islands on them. And no one's responded with a war. What happens if we take a small island? Will the Philippines respond? Will America come and defend the Philippines if a small island's taken? Pretty much, my point is this. When we're talking about amphibious warfare, and we're talking about China, which keeps coming up in the last few weeks on Twitter. Don't presume they're playing the game we presume they are. We presume they're playing a certain game and they've got a certain end goal. The only way you can usually tell the game the enemy's playing is not by what they're talking about publicly, but what they actually build. And either they are building all these ships as a socking great big misdirect, or they're building them because they need to be. And honestly, there are cheaper, easier, and probably more effective ways to build a misdirect than to build all those ships. Dunn, well, yes, even though they are F-14 models with those are not so great engines, even if the new ones from B's, they lack of parts, and more of all F-14 firms were really carrier specific, which was the experience. Do you know what I now see why you say Canada would love LHS. Yes, they would make a perfect thing for a Canada. A nice, suitable one of those for Canada would be an absolute dream. Basically be their security for the entire northern north. Concerns, paid to talk about the plan. Might want to brush up on your Mandarin. Ah, might want to, yes. But usually when I'm talking about them, I'm analysing their ships. Vision. I've always thought the amphibious carrier is best for medium powers like Brazil. Very flexible and multi-role. Yeah, Brazil's currently got HMS Ocean. I wouldn't be surprised if longer term they're looking at an LHD. King's Rook. We need LHAs, not LHDs. LHDs don't work on the Arctic. Actually, they do work fine in the Arctic if they're properly modified for the Arctic. And I can tell you that because some have been used up there when they've been suitably modified. And once again, the Sterling story with the F-14. We built these engines for the F-111. I know they spool up slowly, but is that a problem for a carrier fighter? I might use a menu. It works. Armchair G-Man, don't the plan LHDs make very big and inviting targets though? But do you want to hit them first? And who actually has the capability to hit them in that region? Here's the thing also, you have to remember with amphibious ships. When fighting a war, the amphibious ships tend to wander along, and no one hits them until they get closer to your shore. Why? Because whilst as inventing a target as they are at long range, you're going to be more concerned with taking out things like the carriers and the cruisers and the things that can actually fight you. Which is another reason why I keep saying it's not very sensible for the Americans to start festooning San Antonio class, etc., with missiles if they're going to be used as amphibious ships. If they're converting designing a San Antonio hull and using it as basically CGX, or a ballistic missile, anti-ballistic missile ship. Yeah, that's fine for stooning up missiles, but for stooning regular San Antonio missiles, that's just asking for troubles. Argument against LHDs may be that the cost jump from destroyer size to LHD would hurt Treasury more than jump from LHD to CV. Potentially. Strub, do you feel China wants to expand more into Africa? Well, these ships would be a perfect thing for tooling around off Africa as your influence assets, wouldn't they? Trentalenko, Canada needs an LHA with an icebreaker bow to protect its Arctic. Probably. Shamak, I think the US would also be very happy with Canadians getting LHAs. Look at how happy they are about the Australians. And if they're defending ashore, hit the troop transports whether they have missiles or not. Well, that would be your thinking, but again, you're choosing. Right, in my targeting, am I going to take out the carriers, which will be counter-battering me first, try and take them out, or am I going to take out the amphibs, which might hit me next? Won't hit me for a day or so. I'm going to go after the carrier first. And that's going to be the first fight versus the carrier. And then it's going to be versus the amphib. Nordic Wolf, why do we have such heavy crews on the US? And could China's LGs be a way of threatening other nations nearby, especially in regards to sea exploration? As I said, I wouldn't. The LHAs aren't there for Taiwan. They aren't. There's lots of talk about the Chinese trying to go for the Pacific coast of Taiwan, and that's really not a sensible area, because that's basically allowing their submarines to have happy hunting. No, try and control and sanitize the straits. Don't try and go around and do something fancy. That'll just get you into trouble. But, and the American submarines have that making things about almost. But, you want to start influencing the South China Sea, you want to start possibly pushing into the Indian Ocean or pushing into Africa, then that makes sense. And as to why do the US have such heavy crews, well, it's the American perception of damage control. And I honestly think the Americans prefer to have crews, but also this when their ships are designed. The Army Burks are a great design, but they are the flower of the 1970s technology. And that does affect some of their systems and some of their crewing, manning, and their design and their structure. And you can see that when you look at the Constellation class frigates and what's proposed to them, when you can see what the Zumwalts and even the British Type 45s and things. Manning is something which the US are having to work at. Trent Lanker, a San Antonio 16 VLS sells quad pack with Evolved Sea Pirate won't be a priority target. Be self-protected one. I hope so, but the trouble is people keep talking about fitting them with Tomahawk or anti-ship missiles. That is different. Fixing them with Evolved Sea Haarr in Evolved Sea Sparrow, yeah, that's fine. That's defensive. But I don't really include that in the VLS fitting. You're going to do that with quad pack? That's cool. And again, though, if you've got a ship the size of the San Antonio, why are you putting one set of 16 cells? Surely you can fit 2 16 cells and be carrying 128 quad packs and ASSMs. Brent Paulus, any online sources about whether 7.5 went wrong? No, but conversely, this is fairly decent. And I had it just randomly had it behind me. Evan, do you like the Arab mini LHAs, e.g. Qatars? I'm not too sure on them. There is a point at which if you're making a mini LHA for that range, you're being silly. Carl Nasman, read Carrier Amphib first. Depends how one's attacker would react to a bunch of drowned Marines. Yeah. Strub, do you think the US would mine the Straits? There's a lot of civilian traffic in those straits. Where's the most livable warships? Ooh. The Italians. Every time I've been on an Italian warship, I have been served voluminous amounts of food. They have voluminous space. And they are just always happy. Trentelenko, so Chinese LHA equals Chinese colonial imperial ambitions in East Africa and South Pacific? Well, I'm sure they wouldn't call it colonial or imperial, but let's see. Let's call it power ambitions, influence ambitions. But if defending a shore an HD with a load of Cobras or Apaches with Hellfire is pretty offensive. It is, but it's less offensive than the aircraft carrier. Once you've taken out the aircraft carrier, then the Amphib goes up the cyclist. Oh, sorry, I'm back a second. Could you review the book on landing craft by Osprey quickly? No, it's up in my office. It's not in my office, up in the attic, I think. But I will do it, as I said, in the future. I'll make sure I get it down and get to do it next week. It's always fun. Right, let's just call this from 0255 Q&A. 0255 Q&A to the Bru Run. And Flynn, have the Italians showed you their books on Nelson? No, I think after Aaron and Lancia they've got out of that habit. Armchair Gwan, does some of the rhetoric and actions of China and Z have shades of the East Asia co-prosperity sphere? Yes and no. Look. China's leaders are focusing on China's needs first. There is nothing inherently wrong with that. Because that's what you would expect nations' leaders to focus on, the needs of their peoples first. But it's their assessment of how they're going to get that and what they can necessarily do to achieve that. And the fact is they are more willing to use force necessarily than the West because they perceive the West as not going to use force against them because they perceive democracies, in my experience, this is my experience in discussions with some people from China, they perceive democracies as being not so much weak, but
conflict adverse, especially after recent experiences. So, that's the problem. That's what you're dealing with. They have a different metric for how things work out, and that's not necessarily a wrong metric or a right metric. That's their metric, and that's what you have to think about. Hello, Armchair Doom, and hi to the States. King's Rook. Regarding LHA, LHD Farsian, LHA with icebreaker bow on one end and an ocean bow on the other, or LHD with icebreaker bow. LHD with icebreaker bow. You want to be able to deploy ship to dock. There's a reason why I'm saying this for the Arctic. You want the LHD, you want the dock. Because you might have landing craft utility in there, you might have hovercraft, you might have things like the CB-90, you might have all sorts of vessels in there you can use to deploy your force and maximize your presence. And they can come in. And the thing is, if you're in sort of Arctic waters, one of the things you want to be able to do is get your vessel started in relative protection and warm up. And you can protect them and send them out. So you can. It makes it easier to be used as a mothership, as sort of an area control ship for the Arctic. Do you know what? With the Naval, the Institute of Naval Architect, Naval Practice, do they still publish them? And if so, what books cover World War I to pre-World War War, pre-war and World War II? They do still publish them, and they're all published in the year order. So, as I said, I've got basically, thanks to my dad, I think I've got most of a full set. If not, I think I've got a full set unless I'm the next one. As Schulmack said, the co-prosperity sphere was a product of its time. China has very similar goals to Japan, but there will be a different method used to achieve them. Yes. Dunn, what is the fleet you would want to see as a QE task force of South China Sea? Ships can be from any nation in NATO and the Asia-Pacific region. Well, I wouldn't mind if Canberra or one of her sisters showed up. I would like Albion and a Bay class along. So you had a full suite of capabilities. And I'd like at least a couple of tankers and a couple of supply ships that are solid state solid ships there. I'm quite happy with an Arleigh Burke, quite happy with a Hobart class, quite happy with a couple of Type 23s, but wouldn't mind some more if that's possible. And wouldn't mind if a Halifax turned up, a Canadian ship. Basically, if I was building, I'd make it a Five Eyes force, because as much as I would like it to be NATO force and all these things, and you can do NATO forces, and there is going to be a Danish ship along, which is a fine addition. The Dutch one wouldn't be too bad either. The Seven Provincial class. The advantage of when it's a Five Eyes sort of Anglosphere force, it's because everyone thinks in English. So it does tend to make the command structure and the commands far easier. And I think that sort of nice force would be a nice large group coming in to go, hello. Mm-hmm. Take care, Melanie 1640. I'm Sharon. Thanks. I appreciate the answer. It's always a pleasure. Good trust. Anyway, luck. Good. Anyone have luck getting a digital copy book borrowed from the National Library of Japan by chance? Not recently. Do you know what? Yes, my wallet is going to hate me. Yeah, it's fun. Oh, Doctor, how do you control the strait and keep China from being able to conduct an invasion? Probably some carrier either end of the strait on the Pacific side, the eastern side of Taiwan, submarines in the strait, and land some marines. Oh, and mines as well, dropped in every single harbour. But that's me probably going for overkill, and yeah, it's probably accepting a lot of civilian casualties, because knowing the Chinese, they will send out civilian ferries into there and go, you killed the civilians on purpose. And you go, no, we didn't. And probably those ships will not actually be loaded with anyone. So they will send them out and then claim it's being done. Because, again, if you're a dictatorship and you have the level of control China has, you can afford to do that level of massacre evoker. You don't actually need for anyone to actually die for you to fake it. Which sounds cynical. But it's true. Admiral J, Visby class. Ooh, that'd be cool. Broadly speaking, Stafford, I'm not quite sure they're quite on that level. It's far more. The Chinese outlook on the world, in my experience, is far more a reflection of their internal perceptions of things than necessarily their external perceptions. It's a very internalized external view. Government, I'd say the existing employment plus Canadian employment plus Danish and Dutch ship, then either the Canberra or Italian aircraft carrier, 2 bucks would be nice. Yeah. And further, any views on expanding the Quad to the Quint, including the UK? It's a sensible addition if you want it. It's some good intelligence and the capabilities back up. It's a bit more depth. And for the British, it might be a further incentive to have a permanent commitment in the region, which I have a feeling they're going to do, looking at what's being done at Singapore. I wouldn't be surprised if, as with the forward base in the Gulf, there's going to be a forward base in Singapore. Yeah, that's going a bit mean. That's going a bit down on the thing. We'd hope they wouldn't do that, and that's an accusation to make, which is going. As I said, they don't need to. They might, but I doubt they would. I doubt they'd want to do that, because even if they do that, that is the sort of thing which can come back and haunt them. Translating, so foreigners are symbols for Chinese internal factional disputes. In my experience, yes. Potentially, Stafford, potentially. Potentially. Anyway, the questions seem to be sort of drying up, so I'm going to keep talking for a little. I'll keep answering questions for a bit longer, but I'm going to start sort of packing up, as I think my time has just reached 3 hours, so I'm reckoning I'm about 3 hours and a quarter. So I'll say my aim is to sort of finish by about 10ish. So I give the doggy a little bit of a walk. Costas, what did we learn about Asian militaries from the experience of the Malaysian airliner? That they really didn't have as good at air defense radars as we thought they were. Garment, should the RN have kept or built similar vessels to the Invincible class of small carriers and retained Harriers and loaded up with Harriers and Merlins? As I say regularly, I would like to see Albion Bulwark and Ocean, even though she's now with Brazil, replaced ship for ship by a class of LHDs, which would have F-35 capability. I would have loved to retain the Harriers. We didn't retain the Harriers. I think you need more flight decks to guarantee you have the capability of flight decks, and I think you need more big docks, because whilst the idea is that we can go lighter and everyone's going to go lighter and ninja forces, I don't think that's going to be the way. The world doesn't look like it's going ninja to me outside of some of the Western nations who seem to think they're going ninja. So I think you do need a squadrons. I think you need a battle group, which is a sort of reinforced sort of formation. You see, here's the thing. I would take the existing battalion and go, right then, you are made up of two rifle companies and 2 support companies in the Royal Marine Commander Squadron. And I would go, right, so what I want to do is I want to add a third assault company, third rifle company onto you. So you end up being a 5 company strong battalion. So, same strength they are exactly, 5 company strong squadron. And I want to give you an integrated couple of artillery batteries, probably 105mm light guns at the moment. And I want to give you some APCs, Super AV amphibious ones like the US Marine Corps has. And that sounds like a fairly viable intervention force to me, with its own logistics and an air defense battery integrated and all those things, as a sort of standalone force that you can put on one of these ships and have it where you need to. But that's me. New Amphibious Forces and do. Why do I get the feeling that China is not as internally unified as everyone, China included, thinks? China is the country which occasionally has to send divisions into their coal mining regions in order to deal with problems there. What's on the shelf above you, Doctor? There's a bag from Lugard, which is the company which supplied the shed, which I should have built myself rather than having builders do it. And I should have taken a couple of weeks off YouTube and a couple of weeks off from work and built it all. Would have probably been quicker and a lot easier and less likely we'd have had mistakes. But I didn't, and we live and we learn. And all the various things I have up there, including a power supply and cards from my girlfriend, which are out here because they're really nice things to. Well, they're out here for me to see. They've been out for me today because they're very nice things to keep morale up when you're building and you're just sitting going, I'm feeling a bit bored. Where do I go? Oh, that's a nice sort of pick me up. I just can't spend my life correcting mistakes at the moment. Calvin goes, did mean this World War I amphibious optics so we can deliberately to be convenient? We didn't really cover them today. No, we will probably get back to it. Dark Light, thank you for pointing me out the proper direction. Don't worry. No, that's... And Stafford, there's no such thing as a proper direction. There is different perspectives, especially once you're in these things. And if you can make a logical, reasoned case for your perspective, it's not wrong. It just might not be the one which is the correct fit for the moment. So that's the point. It's what is the correct fit for the moment. This is one of the things I try and get people away when I was teaching war studies at King's, especially when I was doing PhD. Get away from going, There is a right and a wrong way. There is a right way things should develop. There is a wrong way things develop. No. There is a what is the best fit for your need. The aircraft carriers which were right for the Royal Navy in World War II are not necessarily the same aircraft carriers which are right for the US Navy in World War II, which are right for the Imperial Japanese Navy in World War II, or the Italian Navy or the German Navy. You have to go, what is the right aircraft carrier for you? What is the right cruiser? If you're talking about the British, it's probably the Town class. And if they could have mass-produced them and had everyone be a Town class cruiser, rather like they had in World War I, where Town classes were just turning up randomly places, they would have probably been a very happy force if they had the manpower and the industrial capacity to do that. It's basically they were trying with the Crown Colonies, build a cheaper Town class cruiser. But, that doesn't mean the other cruisers were bad, and it doesn't mean that the US Navy shouldn't have the Brooklyns, or the Japanese have the Ashigara. These are very vital ships for them, and they work necessarily for them. So, there is not a right or a wrong. There is what is the best fit that you can afford, which is part of being best fit for what your needs are. And countries only go wrong or get into trouble when they try to do things which are either off the route of march for their capabilities, or are trying to undercut themselves because they think they can get away with it. That's when they get in trouble. And sometimes the capabilities you buy might not be the best fit for your strategic situation, but they might be your best contribution to an alliance because you're a small nation and your best bet is to be indispensable to a larger ally. Sometimes that's what you do. So that's why you have a carrier group which goes to the Far East. If you're Britain. Because that's useful to your allies over there. Because if you have problems elsewhere in the world, they'll come help you. So you going out and helping them for a bit when they have a ship which has had an accident is good credit. I was thinking of being basically an ASW fleet carrier. Yeah. That guy wanna. Sounds cool. What programs do you think would suffer if there was no battleship building holiday? If there was no battleship building holiday, I don't think any programs would really suffer. I think you would have seen a massive growth in guns, though, and I have a feeling if you've got no battleship building holiday, you certainly don't have an aircraft carrier building holiday or a cruiser building holiday. Remember, the RN has a cruiser shortage. If you don't have a cruiser shortage, you might not end up with the tribal class and the larger destroyers. You probably still will end up with the destroyers growing anyway, because of various other reasons, but if you can build enough cruisers, you're not going to do it. Strub. Turn line. Dog walkies take always take priority. That's basically the agreement. Scrub. If you could send a US Coast Guard training team to teach small boat tactics, where would you send them? At the moment? South Africa could do with some assistance. Nothing have one. Hello, John. I agree, but people about F-14s. Go. It's not like having Warhammer or Fly Sword Raver. Have to have both. Come on. Wow, like what we had in the 1980s. You can't see that. You can't say that. Yeah. Sure, Mac, although Grass Zeppelin wasn't the right carrier for no one. No, it wasn't. It was not. There is a whole video where I go into the Grass Zeppelin and what is wrong with it. Okay? We will leave it at that video. I spend enough time on it. Between it and the burn, I spend enough time of my life on the Grass Zeppelin. Karen, wasn't the best design for an Italian carrier Malta? Probably for the Royal Navy, Malta would have been great. But trying to undercut yourselves proves pretty much explains a fair amount of problems that have happened lately. Yep.
Wolf, poor Bonham Richard. She was such a good ship. She was a good ship. I expected some explanation. Yeah. I don't know if I'm a great teacher, but I try to be helpful. And I always try to... I have a very strict policy that if the first response when you're teaching a student or teaching anyone or talking with anyone is to just shout you are wrong without explaining why they're explaining what your perspective is, then you shouldn't. You should shut up and start thinking to your second one. And luckily, I never do have the feeling to shout why you are wrong, because that just would be wrong by me to shout it. The question usually is a case of, well, you're looking at it, but have you considered this context or that context? Why are you focusing on that? And you, as I said, we can a lot in defense and a lot in procurement is a value judgment. It's what value you place on one thing versus another. It's with destroyer design, right? It's the iron triangle, which we talk about with modern armor, but that's the same with the destroyers: protection, armament, and speed, mobility. Okay, that is the holy trinity of your destroyers. That is how you define them, and you can't have all three under the treaty limits. Once you have a fixed limit, you either have to give it one, the other, or you can maybe give it 2 out of 3, but it's going to be an issue. And that's what causes the interesting things with the designs and the problems, because if you try to go for all 3, you end up going well over the limit, because that's the only way you can make it work. New Amphibious forces undo. The real question is, what happens if Warspite and Enterprise elope at the end of war? Do the offspring of such a match result in a working battle carrier? The offspring of such a match may result in a working battle carrier, but will certainly probably end up ruling the world. Carhon. Amazon, as a scout person, we'll never say poor Bonham Richard. It's the ship, not the person. The person really was a bit of a... Carhon. Can we get a bilge pumps discussion on how to be a middle road navy like the UK, and could you do a bilge pumps on the deployment of small comes to light? We probably will do. We're going to be doing a lot more on the Long War as it's coming up, and that's going to be something we're going to be returning to throughout the year, and the rating system. Vision. The K7 was the right ship at the right time for the Klingon Empire. Thompson. Living up to my Zodiac mountain goat time as the ladder is the frozen down something as though standing on the front shed to reach the far part of the roof. Shh. Be safe. Be safe. Right then, it is now 10 o'clock, so I am going to say thank you everyone and good evening. I'm going to start saying goodbye and sort of good night. So thank you, Stafford. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, John Shea. Thank you, Nautical Wolf, Matthew 1, Calvin Gasberg, Kahedron, Dylan Lahair, Jess P, Melanie 1640, Bijon, Derp Squad, Carl, of course. Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting someone. Rick Vasa, thank you. Budguy8829, thank you very much. Trent Delenko, oh, it's a pleasure. It's lovely chatting with you the other day. Armchair G-Man, thank you. Crazy Locker, thank you. Peter Dawson, thank you. Adurian J, thank you. And thank you for being here. Carl Tarag, thank you. John Shea, thank you. And let's see. Juno191, thank you. Thank you very much. And Nautical Wolf, thank you. And, well, basically, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you everyone for watching. Constant Drowsiness, thank you. And Scrub, thank you. And basically, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for watching. If you do like the videos, please do like it. Please consider subscribing. Maybe join us Discord or even Patreon, which, as I said tonight, I will upload the stuff because I'm far less tired tonight than I was last night. So all stuff will be sorted out tonight. Thank you very much and take care. Thank you everyone. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Race Car Meerkat, thank you. That's the other one. Thank you. And just basically everyone. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Paul Johnson, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Night night. And I hope you have a nice week and hope you have a good week coming up. And see you on Thursday. And then Friday. And then Sunday. Take care. Have fun.